Information: Sito is an ex-boy soldier who was expelled from the party of heroes on his journey because of his ruthless and incomparable fighting style. The former leader of the Demon King's army, Satis, was kicked out after a series of failures. The two former enemies decide to travel together to find a second life. Sometimes they go to hot springs, sometimes they sleep in the same bed, sometimes they are attacked by demons. But what do they find at the end of their journey when they lose their place in the world? The road story of the former brave boy soldier and former Demon Lord's army leader's rebirth. Chapter 1, To the Hero's Party. I'm nothing but a slaughterer. He was a boy soldier without a single relative, who had been forced to carry a weapon since he was 5 years old. His fighting prowess was so tremendous that by the time he turned 12, he was known as Sito, which meant destruction and storm. This epithet was the name by which he had come to be known. Among all the boy soldiers, he was the only one with an aptitude for magic swords, and his swordsmanship alone put all the adults to shame. He literally brought destruction and storm to the battlefield. That was all Sito could do. When the adult soldiers told him to charge, he would charge, and when they told him to cover their backs, he would do as he was ordered. That was all Sito could do. Most of the chores and odd jobs on the battlefield were the responsibility of boy soldiers, but Sito was too clumsy for anything but fighting. Normally, he would be persecuted by the adults for that, but because of his magic sword aptitude, he was given a certain degree of special treatment, and was entrusted with the care of weapons. Indeed, as far as Sito was concerned, the only human contact he had ever had was mostly with the adult soldiers, and on the battlefield. He behaved bravely and looked his age, but continued to survive on the battlefield among adults and other boy soldiers. That was all Sito could do. One day, in the kingdom where he lived, he was elected to be a member of the Heroes Party. Just recently, the monsters had become more active and were threatening the lives of people. Sito's martial abilities had caught the eye of the young hero, who consequently chose him. The king had no objection to the decision of the hero, and gladly allowed the boy to accompany him. However, Sito was suddenly banished from the group during their journey. Sito, recruiting you into our party was a mistake, hero. Why is that? I'll admit that I can't do chores or any regular tasks, but I can still be useful in battle, Sito. It happened one morning, by the shore of the lake. While the other party members were gearing up, the hero took him aside to speak in private. At that time, he voiced his disappointment in the boy. It was when they were halfway through their journey, had already defeated all sorts of enemies, and were getting close to the Demon King's domain. You're an exceptional fighter, and frankly, I find that surprising. But fighting is all you can do. Killing is all you ever do. You're hopeless at everything else. It's as if you completely lack human dignity and cooperativeness altogether, hero. Aren't we on our way to kill the Demon King? What else is there to do but fight? Sito. That may be true, but you're incapable of cooking or carrying our luggage. Right now, you're just a slaughterer who attacks people and monsters alike, hero. I'm sorry that I'm so clumsy I can't do chores properly, but fighting means killing, right? Our enemies are out to kill us, so we have to kill them before they do, Sito. The enemies they met on their journey were not always monsters. Sometimes, they were humans. Various kinds of people, ranging from bandits to soldiers from enemy nations, with their own purposes and duties, raided the hero's party, and they all unconsciously gasped at Sito's brutality. Without batting an eye, he slashed them all to death with the magic sword in his hand. He killed those who begged for their lives and those who ran away in fear equally, without hesitation. There were numerous instances where, in the heat of the moment, he reduced his enemies to lumps of flesh. The other party members who witnessed such an inhuman spectacle regarded Sito as a creature far more repulsive than any monster. We're on a journey to save humanity, not on a killing spree, hero. What's the difference? Sito. Enough. I didn't think you were this cruel. As of today, you're expelled from our party, hero. Hold on. How am I supposed to get home from here? Sito. You can figure that out on your own. Try to think and act by yourself without relying on others for a change. Although in your case, you'll probably end up as a bandit since you don't seem to have any talent except for killing. And if that ever happens, we'll crush you with everything we've got, hero. He glared at him and quickly walked away. Sito could do nothing but stand there, dumbfounded. Time passed, and when it was almost noon, Sito finally moved. He aimlessly wandered around in a land he was not familiar with. I'm starving. What should I do? I haven't even had breakfast yet. Sito. I know. I should go into the forest. The forest is a treasure trove of food. But the only cooking method I know is grilling. Still, it should be enough to fill my stomach. I only have so much experience in survival, but if I don't put it into practice anyway, I'll starve to death. Sito. With that in mind, he went into the forest. The dense silence of the area made him feel completely isolated from the outside world. The chill air caressed Sito's cheeks, making his limbs more tense as he walked cautiously and maintained a low position. I can hear birds and the sound of plants swaying in the wind, along with something else. Is it an animal? It sounds not as large. Sito. With that in mind, he pulled out the knife attached to his thigh, and held it in his other hand. Sure enough, he heard a noise coming from a nearby bush. But what emerged from it was someone he never expected. Ah, you're Sito. It was Satis, the leader of the Demon King's army, and his first opponent among them. She was a tall, slender female demon with shoulder-length pink hair tied back, and charming glasses. Looking like a human in her 20s, she was wearing a lascivious leotard-like combat suit, and her open cleavage exuded feminine confidence and charm. She was a master of magic and schemes, not to mention honey traps. He fought her off many times, but her strength still made her incredibly tough to deal with. However, there was no sign of that fearsome opponent in the way she looked right now. Her suit was torn and tattered all over. She was bearing marks, as if she had been punched and kicked in every place. Her white skin, which used to be as unblemished as a jewel, was now stained with blood and mud, and bruised in places. Her glasses were cracked, and the once lively look on her face was now as gloomy as an inorganic object. Her hair, which used to be tied together, was now hanging down to her shoulders in a disheveled manner. Her eyes, which used to be so full of disdain for others, had lost their shine, and her lips, which used to casually fire off so many mild insults, were slightly open and rubbing her hair. Satis, Sito. Thinking that she must have set some kind of trap, Sito summoned his magic sword out of thin air. He switched his knife to his left hand for a dual sword technique. He cautiously kept his eyes on her while maintaining a certain distance from her, but she didn't do anything. She just stood there staring at Sito the whole time, with the light fading from her eyes. Satis, who did not sneer at him like she normally would have, or even start firing her magic attacks at him, only gave Sito a dubious look. Hey, are you, Sito? Satis. She did not respond when he addressed her. She simply stared at him helplessly, looking confused. And finally, she fell forward on the spot. Hey, Sito. He carefully approached Satis, who was lying there, exhausted. She had lost consciousness. Sito, a boy soldier who was a former member of the hero's party, and a magic swordsman. And Satis, the female leader of the Demon King's army. At that time, no one knew that it was in this forest that the two of them had their fateful encounter. Chapter 2, The once talkative and confident female executive has changed a lot. Chapter 2, The once talkative and confident female executive has changed a lot. Satis was lying face down, motionless. Her eyes were unfocused, as if staring into the void. Her beautiful legs, covered in a fabric that seemed like black stockings, were heavily scarred, and her back bore marks that looked as if she had been beaten with a whip. Her alluring, ample breasts were crushed between her own weight and the ground, spreading out sideways. She was so weak and badly hurt that she no longer had the strength to attack or even speak. What's the meaning of this? What the heck happened to her? Sito put his magic sword away in confusion. There are no signs of enemies around. She's been abused so brutally she collapsed after making it this far on her own, which means that something happened within the Demon King's army. Sito, I need to get to the bottom of it. I think? Sito, although he was no longer a member of the hero's party, he was somewhat curious as to what happened and chose to help Satis for the moment. Still, there was also the possibility that she might take advantage of this act of kindness to hit him with a quick surprise attack. So he carried her on his back while displaying enough caution, and started walking through the forest. Eventually, he found a conveniently located cabin, which made for a good place to rest in spite of its simple architecture. He laid her down on the bed, and went out to find food and water. I still can't let my guard down, but I'll have to ask Satis what happened. Sito. An hour or so later, He finally made it back to the cabin. Good thing I had marked the trees with my knife so I wouldn't get lost. Sito. Okay, I got fish, deer meat, and water. I managed to secure some food. Sito. When he opened the door, Satis had just woken up. She was absent-mindedly staring at the ceiling with vacant eyes. Looks like you've woken up, Sito. He put his haul on the floor and called out to her, then she looked his way. Right after that, she jumped out of the bed as if startled. Kaiwah. Satis. Interpreting it as hostile behavior, Sito immediately drew his knife and pointed the tip at her. Don't move, Sito. Once again, the tension in the room was high. However, Satis was acting strange. She was shaking and clutching her comforter in a frightened manner. Don't do this. No more. Please. Spare me. Stop, Satis. He felt a sense of déjà vu in the way Satis muttered weakly. She was like a child soldier whose mind had been broken on the battlefield. Just like them, Satis' mind had been completely broken. She doesn't seem to have any hostile intent, but there's no telling what she might do without warning. Sito. For the time being, he put his knife back into the sheath on his thigh, and tried to pacify her. All right, I won't do anything. So please calm down, Sito. No, Satis. Oh, come on. Fine. Then how about this? Sito. What Sito used was a large square table that was nearby. He turned it on the side like a barricade, and hid behind it. He addressed her while peeking out a little bit. Not seeing me entirely should put you at ease, right? Sito. Satis was momentarily taken aback by his strange behavior, but she managed to regain her composure. Still, the terror in her eyes remained. Huff, huff. You're that boy from the heroes' party, aren't you? Satis. I am, Sito. Did you trap me so you could kill me? Satis. Do you think I have the brains for that? Even tricking you is impossible for me, Sito. The two of them were conversing over the table. What are you doing here? Satis. Does it really matter? I mean, I'm no longer a member of the heroes' party, Sito. Satis. Satis muttered with a surprised look on her face. The boy may have indeed been a dolt, but he was a true menace in battle. When it came to fighting, he would stand at the forefront and hack and slash with his magic sword. Back when he was with the heroes' party, even Satis herself was afraid of his onslaught. But some stuff happened. What about you? Sito. I'm Satis. Satis hung her head down and fell silent, as if she did not want to talk about it. She was always so talkative and full of energy when hurling verbal abuse at him, but even Sito lost his bearings from seeing her so depressed. In any case, Satis was now utterly helpless. Though she was so gifted in magic, her body was now almost devoid of mana. Hey, you want some food? Sito. No, thanks, Satis. After that, she laid back down and fell asleep with the comfort covering her whole body. Unable to ask her any more questions, Sito had no choice but to eat today's food by himself. Well, guess I should make a fire, Sito. I'll start with fish. Sito. He grilled it and ate it. Next was deer meat. This stuff is good. Sito. Grilled fish and grilled deer meat. It was all grilled food, but it filled his stomach and his heart. Phew. I'm full. I'll save the rest for later. But I'll still have to go hunting again, Sito. Day 1 at the cabin. The two of them did not talk to each other until nightfall. Chapter 3, I listened to her personal story, and I heard the gruesome details. Chapter 3, I listened to her personal story, and I heard the gruesome details. The forest at night looked even grimmer than during the day. While every animal was hiding or sleeping, owls soared through the trees, hunting their prey. This same forest cycle had been repeating itself for thousands of years. It had remained unchanged even after mankind's long history of warfare. And in the midst of the forest's unchanging daily routine were now two foreign beings. In a cabin with lights leaking outside, the presence of those two who were so far removed from the forest's inhabitants was particularly noticeable. Satis. Whoa? Sito. Satis jumped up in shock, and inadvertently spilled some water. Sito hid behind the table once again, and called out to her. What's wrong, Sito? Number. It's nothing, Satis. She was breathing heavily. Her expression was distorted, as if she was frightened by something, but she tried to feign composure. Was she having a nightmare? Sito. Satis, what happened to you? You used to be so condescending toward us, yet, Sito. Right now, she was a shadow of her former self. She was so different from the Satis he knew. His former enemy had changed so much that he ended up worrying about her himself. It was then that Satis slowly began to speak. "This is all because of you people, Satis." "Eh? Sito. Or so I would like to say. But the truth is, I'm paying for my own failures, Satis." She had stood in the way of the Heroes Party countless times, challenging them with her wits and magic. However, every time she did, they managed to drive her away, leading to an accumulation of mission failures in her career. The Demon King was not only disappointed and displeased with her, but he even sentenced her to be executed. Her execution was to take place the next day, that is, today morning. She was supposed to die today. To make sure that she would die in bitter regret, the Demon King stripped her of her position as a top executive, and had her lynched by almost everyone in the Demon King's army. She was not only punched and kicked, but also humiliated and tortured with whips, high-voltage electric discharges, and a triangular wooden horse. The worst of all was being repeatedly trampled by monsters who were ranked much lower than her. This punishment broke her mind, and finally, she came to fear the entire reality in front of her. Then, in the morning, fearing death by execution, Satis escaped. She barely escaped from the Demon King's domain alive, and ran into Sito in this forest. "I can't believe it, Sito. I have betrayed the trust of His Majesty the Demon King. Even worse, I feared for my life and ran away, Satis." She smiled. But that was not the kind of smile that Sito or the Heroes Party knew. It was a sad smile, a far cry from her former self. "Well, guess I should tell you about me, Sito." "It's fine if you don't. I don't think your story will be particularly interesting, Satis." Satis smiled lightly as she shrugged her shoulders. Sito sat there and leaned against the table, which was propped up on its side. "I was kicked out of the Heroes Party, Sito." "You already told me that during the day, Satis." "They said it's because I'm a slaughterer, Sito." "Eh, Satis?" What he told her from that point on was his personal story about how he had been running around the battlefield as a boy soldier. Also, how much different his values were from everybody else's, and how he did not know any solution other than fighting. "Well, I don't know if I explained it right, but this is who I am, Sito." She remained silent on the other side of the table. She did not know what kind of face she was making as she listened, but Sito continued. "Ever since I can remember, the adults have always told me to fight. If I didn't do as they said, they would beat me up. I didn't want that, so I always obeyed. When they found out that I had what they called a magic sword aptitude, they became a bit nicer to me. I didn't really understand the adults' decisions, but they were being nicer to me, so nothing else mattered." Sito. The rest of his story was as we already knew. He killed his enemies on the battlefield as ordered by the adults. Sometimes, he would be captured and tortured by the enemy, but he never spilled any intel because he was ordered not to. Satis, who had been listening the whole time, finally opened her mouth. "Say, Satis." "Sito." "You said you were a boy soldier, right?" Satis. "Right, Sito." "If I'm not wrong, your country and its neighboring nations should have banned the military enlistment of children due to religious regulations. And yet here you are, Satis." Yeah, but the grown-ups use boy soldiers like it's normal, so maybe it doesn't matter." "I don't get the complicated stuff, and they always told me to shut up and obey without thinking about anything else. Besides, I always saw others like me when fighting enemy nations. I wonder if they were new recruits. They looked so scared. But if I didn't kill them, they could have killed me, and the adults would have gotten mad at me too, Sito." Once again, she remained silent. She was a bit worried she might have said something hurtful, but she spoke to him again. "Are you sure it's all right for you to tell me all this?" Satis. "Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't know how to go back to the kingdom, and I'm not prepared for that either. Even if I did go back, I would probably get killed. That much I know. After all, I'm just a soldier who's got nothing but his magic sword aptitude going for him. If I die, that's it, and the country has so many capable adults to spare that it won't change anything if I alone go missing. Besides, I have no home to go back to, and there's no one who'd worry about my well-being, Sito." "Why am I saying all this, Sito?" Suddenly, Sito wondered. He had never talked so much about his past before, and yet tonight, he found himself unusually eager to share it. Perhaps it was because he felt sympathy for Satis, who was in a similar situation. "I see, Satis." She gave a short reply, illuminated by the moonlight streaming in through the window. This light from the sky brightened the forest indiscriminately, and served as a guide for the nocturnal animals. However, there was no such guide for the two of them right now. They were both pitiful migratory birds with nowhere to go. Don't you feel lonely? You've been cast away by a great number of people, you know? Satis. I don't know. Say, what do adults do at times like these? Sito. I don't know either, Satis. She ended their conversation with a gentle tone, and each of them fell asleep. Satis laid wrapped in her covers, staring at the young man on the other side of the table, hidden from view. Beyond that table, Sito was sleeping. He was wrapped in a large cloth and sitting in a fetal position. I don't know. I really have no idea what to do in such a situation, Satis. Satis muttered and closed her eyes. Strangely enough, she managed to sleep peacefully without dreaming of anything. Chapter 4. When she woke up, she looked somewhat pretty. And my heart skipped a beat before I knew it. Chapter 4. When she woke up, she looked somewhat pretty. And my heart skipped a beat before I knew it. Morning came early for the ex-boy soldier. The rhythm of life specific to soldiers, waking up in the morning at a given time, awakened Sito's consciousness immediately. At first, he thought he had to wake up quickly so as not to be late for training, but his morning brain reminded him of the current reality. Oh, right. I have no place to go back to anymore. Sito. Satis is still sleeping. Okay, time to scout on reconnaissance. Sito. He slowly walked out of the cabin, mumbling as if he were on a mission. Although he called it reconnaissance, he was actually going on a stroll. Breathing in the early morning forest air like this feels nice. I've always been into the forest for training, but never on such a peaceful walk. Sito. Are those fruits? All right. They look tasty. Sito. Considering his physical abilities, climbing up a tree to get the fruits that grew on it was nothing much. He climbed up as fast as a monkey, and picked about 5 lusciously fragrant fruits. He smiled with satisfaction at the palm-sized yield. I never thought I'd receive so much grace after being kicked out of the party. Sito. He packed the fruits into a bag and turned back. I'm gonna spoil myself a bit and have 2 of these for breakfast today. Sito. Right before reaching the cabin, he suddenly fell flat on the ground without making a sound and started crawling forward. When he observed the cabin from the shade of the grass, he saw Satis standing outside, her eyes still vacant. The way she stood there with her skin moistened by the early morning dew of the forest had a beauty that made it hard to think of her as a regular enemy. The sight of Satis standing there startled him in spite of himself. Her combat suit and glasses were back to normal, as if she had fixed them with the mana she recovered after one night's sleep. Her scars and bruises were gone, and her hair was beautifully tied back, as it used to be. However, her heavily revealing outfit combined with the atmosphere around her elicited a different kind of fascination in the boy. Unlike back when he was facing her as an enemy, it was a fascination for her feminine beauty. So she's awake. But what is she doing standing there and spacing out like that? Sito. He stayed down and observed her without knowing why she came out. Satis was gazing at the scenery outside, and Sito was watching her while lying down in the shade of the grass. A few minutes of that curious spectacle passed. Then she suddenly let out a sigh, and thrusted her hand in the boy's direction. Wah, woo, wah. Sito. Sito, who had been hiding in the shade of the grass, was easily lifted up by Satis and her mana. Then, he landed at her feet as if she had just tossed him. Hiding in the shadows and gazing at a woman. Can't say I'm impressed. Satis. How did you know I was there? Sito. Please don't take me lightly. I'm still a former army leader. Satis. As she says that in exasperation, she caught sight of the bag he was holding. Some fruits tumbled out of it, with one of them rolling at Satis' feet. Did you get these for me? Satis. Huh? You wanna eat those too? I found these by chance. I thought they would be good for breakfast. Sito. He stood up and brushed away the dirt. Satis' expression brightened a little. There was a slight glow in her eyes as she picked up a fruit and stared at it. Do you like fruits? Sito. Yes, more so than meat. Satis. And here I thought monsters were carnivorous. In that case, you can take one. Sito. This time, Satis was the one who looked surprised. You're giving it to me, Satis? Yeah, I still have 4 more. Is there something wrong? Sito. No, but why do you not only help me, but also offer me charity? We're enemies, aren't we? Satis, I told you, I'm not part of the heroes' party anymore. Even if I managed to return to my country, they would have me executed for bringing shame on the kingdom. So I have no home and no country anymore. So the question of who's my enemy and who's my ally is now irrelevant, Sito. If you tortured me into telling you how to go back to your country, and handed me, the former leader of the Demon King's army, over to your king, don't you think you could at least avoid the death penalty? Satis, she may be right. If I captured Satis and handed her over to the kingdom, then, Sito. Nah, not worth it, Sito. Boy, how can you be so calm when you have nowhere to go? Satis, even I don't know. Maybe it's because I've always been isolated when fighting on the battlefield. Or something, Sito. Even Sito himself could not solve the mystery of his own philosophical attitude. The king had absolute faith in the hero. So getting kicked out of the party by that same hero was akin to betraying the king's expectations. For someone like Sito who could do nothing but fight, the adults had this authority called monarchy, against which he could do nothing. His magic sword and their authority may have different characteristics, but the difference in their power was obvious. I'm sure the moment I was kicked out from their party, I had become a national disgrace. When I think about it, I just don't know. Sito. Satis was left speechless at Sito's words. This was not the kind of thing a 12-year-old boy should be talking about. The situation he was in was way beyond what the average mind could stand, let alone an adult. What that boy was harboring was most likely the feeling of resignation. He was not aware of it, but his spirit was worn out by the hellish life he had lived as a child soldier. I see. You're just like me, Satis. Now that you mention it. Yeah, I guess so, Sito. Just as the awkwardness of that moment was about to die down, Sito and Satis felt the presence of several monsters nearby. They let their guard down, allowing the enemy to approach. They were now but a few feet away. Are those monsters, huh, Satis? Sito. When he looked in her direction, something that shocked Sito even more was happening. Satis. She dropped her fruit and was trembling all over, unable to move. She wrapped her arms around her own body as if to hug herself, then she curled herself up like she was freezing in the cold. Her pupils shrank due to contraction, and her eyes were wobbling and shaking, causing her vision to be hazy. She looked like a soldier traumatized by the battlefield. The memory of that night had been going back and forth in her mind. That horrible single night that shattered all her self-esteem and pride as one of the Demon King's top executives, and as one of the most powerful people. Eek, Satis. Damn it. She can't move. Sito. Meanwhile, the monsters surrounded them. They were larger than the two of them. One of them looked like a big boar, and another looked like a vicious spider. There were 3 of them in total, and judging by the state Satis was in, she did not look like she could fight. Now what do we have here? Gehi. If it isn't Satis-sama, Monster A. You're right. She's the shameless one who escaped right before her execution. Also, isn't that brat next to her a member of the heroes' party, Monster B? The monsters expressed their contempt and mockery towards Satis. She hung her head and shuddered at the sight of them. We sensed the presence of a human and someone familiar, so we came here to check, but, Gehi, we just hit the jackpot. We're gonna devour you vermin, Monster A. All at once. The monsters laughed vulgarly. But just one more thing before we do, Satis-sama. How about we brutalize you again? I had a real blast torturing you, the only female in the whole Demon King's army. Thanks to that, I think I've grown addicted to humiliating women. Jahahaha. Monster B. The sound of that vulgar laugh made her cower even more. It was as if the top executive of the Demon King's army who wielded so much power had never existed. Satis was torn between her trauma and reality, and was too scared to move, while Sito, who was standing next to her, scowled at them without moving. He had been staring at the 3 monsters talking down to Satis, without saying a word. Kahaha. What a brat. He's so afraid of us he's decided to keep his mouth shut. Come on, then. Go ahead and ask that tramp for help. She's just a coward who can't fight anymore. Monster B. Again. The monsters laughed out loud. But Sito neither retreated nor moved forward. He simply stared at them without saying anything. HMPH. So you're just gonna stand there like a scarecrow? Fine then. You can just die along with that broad. Monster B. The monsters got ready to attack. As Satis reflexively screamed, Sito finally opened his mouth. Despite the current situation, his tone was calm. Don't worry, Sito. Those words resonated in Satis. Chapter 5, I'll protect you in a bloodshed. Chapter 5, I'll protect you in a bloodshed. You cheeky brat, monster bee. The bull-like monster rushed forward, like a shell fired from a huge cannon. He hurled his huge body at Sito while making the ground rumble. They were not that far from each other. The monster's typically strong pounce gave him an extraordinary initial speed. If nothing was done, he would hit both of his targets and kill them. However, draw, Sito. Right after he muttered this, the moment the boy and his opponent were 2 meters away from each other, his magic sword flew out. Moreover, it did not emerge from Sito's hand, but from the ground below the monster's feet. Gajawak. Monster B. The momentum of the magic sword thrusting into the monster's belly caused his huge body to fly off the ground. At the same time, Sito jumped as well, pulled his magic sword out of the belly of the overturned monster, and cleaved his body in two with the force of gravity. The magic sword, filled with power and wind pressure, sliced the monster's torso in half. With blood splattering all over the area, the monster that was reduced to 2 lumps of flesh fell to the ground. What? Monster A. Both the other monsters and Satis were astonished at such a sight. The silent boy soldier landed and swung his blade to flick the blood off it and send it flying. He drew his knife from the sheath on his thigh, and held it in his other hand. He took a two-sword fighting stance unique to him while fixing his gaze on the monsters. Damn you, Monster A! The ape-like monster and the spider-like monster sprang at him at the same time. Boy, run! Satis shouted spontaneously. Those monsters were different from the average mobs. Even for a magic swordsman, taking 2 of them at the same time was too risky. Just as his small body was about to be crushed under both of their huge, hideous bodies, something happened. You're wide open, Sito. Sito's emotionless voice echoed softly. That was his true disposition, as a boy soldier wielding a magic sword. Carnage. Gaga? Monster A. Guaah. Monster C. Sito dashed to the giant ape's feet, and skillfully stabbed him in the cartilage of his knee joints with his knife and all his strength. When he flinched and the size of his body slightly hindered the giant spider's movements, Sito moved like a spinning top and slashed all the legs on the latter's right side. With his knife in one hand and his magic sword in the other, he became a whirlwind that engulfed the 2 monsters. Each one of them went down shrieking and roaring, but they were not dead yet. That was when he unleashed the power of his magic sword. The blade turned red, then as if acting in concert with it, Sito's eyes turned red as well. Sito instantly disappeared, and the next moment, he reappeared in front of Satis as if to protect her. A short time after he reappeared, the monsters were struck by a delayed attack of countless crimson slashes. Gajawak. Monstrancy. The monsters screamed in agony as they were reduced to piles of flesh. The battle only lasted a few minutes. Sito readjusted his breathing and, in the same manner as a swordsman from overseas known as samurai, swung the blood off his magic sword and put it back in its dimensional space like he was sheathing it. Boy, Satis. Satis readjusted her glasses, and snapped out of her fear. Sito turned to Satis, but there was no joy or sadness on his face. There was nothing but emptiness. It was not the face of a man who found pleasure in killing, nor was it the face of a man who felt any special emotions. It was the face of a killer who had destroyed his enemies in a businesslike, workmanlike, warlike manner. It was a cold and expressionless face, as if it were inanimate. Are you hurt? Sito. I'm fine, Satis. Good. It's too dangerous here. I should have known strong monsters would appear near the Demon King's domain, Sito. And just when I had finally found a shelter to rest in. This forest was surprisingly full of food too. But now, Sito. Say, Satis. Yeah? Sito. Did you just save me? Satis. Enemies had arrived. If I hadn't killed them, they would have killed me. And I don't want to be killed. Neither do you, right? Sito. He said it frankly. There was not a single hint of confusion at her question. Like the tranquil flow of water, Sito answered without hesitation. He did not want to die, so he killed them. That was the kind of sentiment that those who had lived on the battlefield harbored. Well, yes, I don't want to die. But you saw the state I was in just now, didn't you? I'm not the same as I used to be. I was so afraid of those monsters who were lower than me that I couldn't even move an inch. You must find that hilarious, right? The woman who has been looking down on you, trapping you, and holding you in such contempt. is now reduced to such a pathetic mess. Sito watched her putting herself down with a blank expression. At a time like this, a man would say something sensible. But having lived his life with only a limited number of interpersonal relationships, he had no idea what to say at all. However, for some reason, Sito could not bring himself to leave her alone as she currently was. Say, what kind of place is the battlefield to you? Sito. The battlefield? Why do you suddenly, Satis? Just tell me, Sito. I used to think of it as a place where I could test my powers. It was also a place where I could have fun watching my enemies writhe in pain. I actually enjoyed it. It was fun watching humans suffer under the pressure of our overwhelming power. Satis smiled weakly. As of now, those times had vanished into nothingness as glories of the past. The eyes behind her glasses were filled with despondency and despair. The smile of that female demon, the former leader of the Demon King's army whose future was cut short, was distorted in sorrow by her self-mockery. Which means that the shock you've experienced so far, Sito. It's the first time I've felt it. Yes, Satis. Seeing Satis' unmotivated look, he remained silent for a bit. Being shocked on the battlefield or during torture is a common thing. Even adults like you can't do anything under stress. I've seen it happen to countless people, Sito. This may be true for humans, but I'm a demon, remember? I'm normally far stronger than humans, and, Satis, demon or human, what does it matter in a fight? They're all the same. They all try to kill each other. It was the same for me too. Whether it was children or adults, they all had their spirits broken on the battlefield or by torture. And I'd never laugh at or make fun of those people, Sito. Sito looked straight at Satis and answered. His unclouded eyes reflected her as she was. You really are a strange kid, Satis. I get that a lot. Not sure where that comes from, though, Sito. But still, I owe you a debt of gratitude for saving me. I always thought you were the kind of fighter that simply rushed at his enemies, but it turns out you can fight cleverly too, Satis. Those monsters just kept babbling away, so I had plenty of time to observe them. Sito. I see. Then I guess I wasn't observant enough. Supposing we had remained enemies, I might have ended up cut down by you, Satis. Satis took a light, deep breath, and unlike before, smiled calmly. Maybe I had been so focused on my own pride and military achievements that I've been unable to perceive everything else until now. Satis. Thinking about it that way made her feel a bit better. Like how she did not have to work so hard anymore. What are you going to do from now on, boy? Satis. I haven't decided on anything specific yet, but I think I'll try going on a journey. I met a mercenary who told me about his travels once, so I've been yearning to go on a journey of my own. And one day, I will have my own house. Say, why don't you come with me, Satis? Sito. But Satis. You don't have anywhere to go either, right? So what do you say? Sito. As soon as he spoke about traveling, a glimmer of innocence befitting of his age appeared in his eyes. Satis' heart was moved by this face that was unlike any other she had seen him make in battle. Are you sure? I've said a lot of terrible things to you, and I looked down on you, you know? Satis. We were fighting back then, so we had to despise each other. We couldn't have fought to the death if we had been on good terms. Besides, I think trash-talking and upsetting your enemies to create an opening is a legitimate battle tactic. You know? Not that I'm very good at it, though, Sito. Giggle. You really are an interesting child. Alright. I'm coming with you. Ah, right. What's your name, boy? Satis. Me? My name is Sito. That's what everybody calls me, Sito. Sito. It means destruction and storm, right? Then once again, my name is Satis. Please treat me well, Sito. Satis. Thus, the two walked under Satis' guidance to escape from this forest. Chapter 6. We're gonna live in the future, and for that, we need a bath first. Apparently. Chapter 6. We're gonna live in the future, and for that, we need a bath first. Apparently. Hey, Sito, Satis. What is it? Sito. Weren't you shocked from being denied everything and expelled from the hero's party? I mean, Satis. Of course I was shocked. Even now, I feel like crying because of it, Sito. However, Satis could only smile wryly at Sito, who was moving briskly for whatever reason. As they walked through the forest, he was maintaining a low posture, and paying close attention to their surroundings. He had been unable to relax all along. probably because of the battle that just took place. That's not what it looks like to me, though. Wait, now you're crawling on the ground, Satis. We're still close to the Demon King's domain, so there could be snipers stationed in the area. Come on, you should get down too, Satis. Sito. There aren't any snipers here. In fact, there aren't any snipers in the Demon King's army to begin with, Satis. I see, said Sito before continuing to crawl ahead. Perhaps it was due to his nature as a former child soldier, but Sito was a cautious boy. Oh geez, just walk normally, please, Satis. MMRGH. Well, if you say the area is safe, then I'll comply, Sito. He stood up and brushed off the mud on him. Say, if other monsters show up again, Satis, you won't be able to move, right? I'll deal with them, Sito. He answered without hesitation. Satis felt relieved, but she also had slightly mixed feelings. I'm sorry. I'll work on myself to be ready to fight immediately, Satis. You don't have to fight if you don't want to. A soldier is more than enough for this job, Sito. But you're not a soldier anymore, are you? Satis. Right. I forgot, Sito. His reply was short. They took a break a little further ahead. They were almost out of the forest. They are the fruits they picked up this morning. Satis, you're really good at peeling fruits, Sito. She borrowed a knife from Sito and used it to peel the fruits. The latter watched her with sparkling eyes. I'm quite skillful with my hands. Now I just need to cut them up into neat little slices. Done. Here you go, Satis. She handed out the sliced fruits on a plate she borrowed from the cabin. Sito immediately took a bite. Yummy, Sito. Don't exaggerate, it's only one slice of fruit. I'm sure you had much better food back when you were with the heroes party, Satis. No, I never got to eat much. They always shunned me, Sito. Satis. Fighting was all I could do. I was no good for pretty much every other task. Because I'm clumsy. So the others gradually distanced themselves from me, and I was the only one who didn't get much to eat under the pretext of saving food. They said I always ate in the dark, out of their sight, Sito. So, back then too, Satis. She mentioned an old memory. During one of her attempts to get back at the heroes party, Sito was looking pale and unsteady on his feet. Yeah, that did happen. Back then, Angelica the mage and McLean the monk healed me afterwards. So, Sito. And before they did, you were fighting me on an empty stomach and in a daze? And even then, I mocked you so much, Satis. I got used to it on the battlefield. Don't mind it, Sito. Following that, he began munching on fruits again. After all the hell he went through, he then saved his former enemy, and asked her to travel with him. Normally, anyone would be thinking about revenge, or capturing said former enemy to get even with her. That would be a normal reaction. However, this boy had no such thoughts at all, and tried to live on in spite of the unbearable sadness in him. Satis felt an unfamiliar pain in her chest. For some reason, upon seeing the boy from behind as he ate the fruits with such relish, she felt her chest tighten. Satis placed her own share of the fruits near him. You don't want them? Nom nom, Sito. No, I don't have much of an appetite. Please help yourself, Satis. Are you sure? You won't get them back even if you ask for them later, you know? Nom, Sito. Please finish what's in your mouth first, okay? Also, don't talk with your mouth full, Satis. After swallowing everything in his mouth, Sito took her portion of the fruits without hesitation, and began eating them vigorously. Satis, who had been watching in silence, pulled a canteen of water out of thin air, and handed it to him. Gulp gulp. Sorry, Sito. Take your time to savor the food, Satis. She used spatial magic to store daily necessities, and could take them out whenever she wanted. That included cosmetics, clothings, and so on. This was also how they stored the food and water they collected around the cabin, making it easy to transport. You could call it a higher version of Sito's ability to draw his magic sword out of thin air. Phew, I'm full. That ability of yours sure is convenient, Sito. You also have one similar to mine, don't you? Satis. My magic sword is the only thing I can store. I tried it with something different once, but it went badly. And I got one hell of an earful for that, Sito. What in the world were you even thinking? That aside, what should we do once we're out of the forest? Satis. He did not really know what to do after leaving the forest. After all, this was all a first for him. For the moment, he had a swirling desire to proceed further. For now, once we leave the forest, I think I'd like to go to a town, Sito. A town, you say? In that case, I know just the place. It's far from the Demon King's domain, with no risk of monster attacks, and will be free to relax. Satis. Is there really such a town? Sito. Their destination was set. The two of them had been leading lives burdened by duty. But now, they were starting over, and taking the time to relax. Somehow, she seemed to be enjoying herself a little more, and her face had regained some of its bigot. Say, are you really that eager to go to that town? Sito. Of course I am. I've has my eyes on it since way back. It's famous for its public baths. Satis. Baths. Huh. Sounds nice. Can we soak in there for long? Or is there a time limit? Sito. There is no time limit. But you shouldn't soak in there for too long, or you could get dizzy afterwards. Oh, that reminds me. Actually, their services also include mixed baths. Being a boy, I bet you would love to go in one of those, am I right? Well, not that you would be allowed to, since they're age restricted. Foo-foo. Satis. Mixed baths. What's that? You mean I'm too young to use them? Sito. What? So you don't know about them? How boring. Satis. Satis, who said those words with no malice but still with a teasing tone, looked more radiant than ever before. Seeing it as a good sign, Sito smiled back at her, and they both pressed on. By the way, Sito, do you have money on you? Sito. We need money? Sito. Sigh. Just as I thought. You do seem like you don't have any. Satis. Sorry, Sito. It's fine. If we're talking about human currency, then I've got some of it on me. Today, we're going to take a soak and find an inn where we can cut loose. Satis. He very much agreed with Satis' suggestion. It was not often that he got a chance to rest. The thought of it brought a rush of emotions to Sito's heart. Are you having fun, Sito? Satis. I see now. So that's how it feels to have fun. I never thought I could ever have fun in my everyday life. Sito. Foo. Come on, let's go. Satis. She extended her hand, and Sito grabbed it. He and Satis were now walking together into a world that he would never have been able to experience as a boy soldier. https://wfantranslattions.com/wp-content/uploads/2020/09/img_5320.png. Chapter 7, We each spent some time in the baths. Chapter 7, We each spent some time in the baths. The city of Clayshut, the public bathhouse there was very popular among foreign tourists, and traveling merchants and adventurers who had heard the rumors about it often went there for relaxation. Many people did business in that city, and during peak seasons, it was so crowded with people at night that it practically turned into a revelry. It was late in the evening when Sito and Satis finally arrived. They quickly found lodgings and went to use the facilities. Well, enjoy yourself. But make sure not to stay in the water for too long, okay? Satis. Don't worry. Back at the barracks, us boy soldiers were instructed to leave the baths after 10 seconds. Sito. Please soak in the longer than that. And clean yourself up, okay? Satis. Got it, Sito. They both separately went to the men's bath and women's bath, and soaked in the bathtubs to wash their fatigue away. I live again. Satis. In the women's bath, Satis dipped her entire naked body in the bathtub, and stretched in the hot water as it permeated to her core. All the stress she had accumulated had been lifted off, and her face now looked as full of life as it used to. I'm sure that if I hadn't met him, I would have never been able to come here. Satis. Her skin was more even and firmer than humans, and she truly had the proportions of a goddess. She was the lone female of the Demon King's army, and her beauty also put her in a class of her own. Her whole body was covered in hot water as if it was caressing her, and she was relaxed down to her fingertips. How strange. I used to play an active role in the Demon King's army and hold the humans in such contempt, yet here I am, relaxing in a bathhouse. Satis. Originally, Satis had planned to monopolize this bathhouse after conquering the city. However, she had fallen so low that she did not need to do that anymore. But strangely enough, she was not sad because she ran into Sito. If she had not met him, she would have surely been captured by those monsters, and executed. I have to show him my gratitude. Satis. She spotted the first star in the sky through the window near the ceiling of the bathroom, and suddenly smiled tenderly. The tranquil water was at the right temperature, allowing her to relax even more. Speaking of which, I wonder if he's staying in the water like I told him to. To be fair, this is a large place, so maybe he's itching to swim in the bath and can barely hold himself back. Just kidding. He can't be that childish. Satis. Meanwhile, in the men's bath, Sito's major struggle persisted. I wanna swim. Sito. The bathtub was very spacious, and although there were many guests, there was still plenty of extra room. However, swimming was obviously prohibited here. The water is perfect, there's no time limit, and I'm really in the mood for it. With all these conditions combined, would I deprive myself of such an opportunity? Sito. He had been traveling on foot after all his battles. Even so, he had all the vitality he needed to move around as much as he liked. Nah, no way I'm holding back. I'll be a fish. Sito. Right after that, he was stopped by a bearded man who was next to him. Boy, swimming is forbidden here, ya know? Bearded man. KH. Sito. The man once again called out to Sito, who had decided to soak in the bathtub quietly. Never seen your face around here before. You a traveler? Bearded man. You could say, Sito. And a good fighter at that, right? Bearded man. Only for small fights. Sito. Ha ha ha. Don't be so modest. I can tell. You've got the eyes of a guy who's been to hell and back. You're an ex-boy soldier, ain't ya? Bearded man. The man snickered with satisfaction, and wiped his face with a cloth. The boy gasped at the discerning eye of this man, who deduced at first glance that he was a boy soldier. Bathhouses are great, right? One dip in here blows off all your fatigue in one go. Once you've enjoyed your fair share of battles for a long time, both the summer heat and the heat of the battlefield don't make much difference. But baths are a different story. Bearded man. Are you a mercenary? You don't seem like a formal soldier. Sito. That's right. Well, part of me wishes to settle down as a guard or something someday, and live a peaceful life, though. Bearded man. The man smiled sarcastically. He had a dream to lead a stable life one day. I've got a dream too, to travel to all sorts of places, and obtain my own house someday. Sito. That's a nice dream. You plan to do all that together with that beautiful sexy lady who was with you? Bearded man. Sito. Easy, easy. I'm not gonna steal her from you or anything. It's just a mercenary's intuition. I don't think it's a good idea to get involved in that kinda mess. So I won't pry any further. Also, if you wanna confront me, do it only on the battlefield. I wouldn't be able to relax if I made enemies in my private life too. Bearded man. It appeared that this man only happened to see Sito and Satis. He showed no sign of hostility, killing intent, or any indication that he was lying. And most of all, his dignity as a mercenary was overflowing from his manly body. Sito felt that, his personality aside, he was a man with a strong will. Welp, I'm gonna go now. What about you, boy? You're gonna get dizzy if you stay in there too long. Bearded man. Yeah, I'll leave too, Sito. Frankly, I'd love to share a drink with you and toast to our chance meeting, but you're still a kid and all. Besides, I bet you'd rather spend your time with that missy than with a dirty old-timer like me. Bearded man. The man hummed as he walked up the stairs. Sito felt something when he saw the man's back, and suddenly wondered what his name was. Say, what's your name? Sito. My name? Well, just call me Holmes. And no need to tell me yours. We probably won't meet again, after all. Bearded man. Holmes. But, Sito, if we ever run into each other again, you can tell me your name, Holmes. With those last words, he walked away. Sito stepped out of the bathtub a few moments later. When he got dressed in the changing room and went outside, Satis, who had left the bath, waved to him. That was quite a long bath you took. Yup, you're all clean now, Satis. And you look full of energy, Satis. Sito. Thanks to you. Now, shall we head to the inn? I heard the food there was delightful, Satis. Really? Sito. Sito's eyes sparkled at the mention of food, and Satis smiled with satisfaction at that. It was completely dark outside, and the stars welcomed them with a pleasant breeze. By the way, you didn't think about swimming in the bath, did you? Satis. Wow. Sito. So you did, huh? Satis. She gave him a funny smile. Sito's cheeks were flushed with embarrassment. The two of them walked side by side toward the inn. Chapter 8. The Truth About You That I Found. Chapter 8. The truth about you that I found. The inn where Satis and Sito were staying was a relatively large building among all the lodging facilities in this city. It was a two-story building with a dining room on the first floor. We're lucky we got one of the last available rooms. And here, we have the dining room, Satis. Wow, it looks so much prettier than the mess hall in the barracks where the adults ate. Sito. Most of the seats in the dining room were occupied by drunken adventurers and those who were holding business meetings while eating. The two found a discreet spot at the other end of the room. The chairs and table were of a design that Sito has never seen before, which made his heart flutter even more. This was truly the sort of world display yet unseen that he was hoping to see during his journey. Now, let's sit down. I'm starving, Satis. Yeah. So what's on the menu today? Sito. Just wait and see, Satis. The dish that arrived was a local dish with plenty of meat. Sito's eyes were drawn to this finely fragrant meat, served on a clean wooden plate, and seemingly ready to overflow with juice, as well as the colorful vegetables, and the piping hot soup. For Sito, it was a mountain of treats. Are you pleased with what you see? Satis. See, can I? Really? Eat all this? Sito. Yes, be sure to eat plenty. Okay. This is my way of thanking you for today, Satis. Thanking me? Sito. You saved me, remember? It's thanks to you that I'm still here right now, Satis. I see. Okay. In that case, I'm digging in, Sito. With that, he picked up his fork, and in an awkward motion, he stabbed the meat with it, and put it in his mouth. The juice and flavor spreading inside his mouth gave a jolt to his brain. Unlike the meals he had had in the past, the more he chewed the meat, the more flavor he got, and the more he wanted to keep it inside his mouth. Satis, it's amazing. This meat is so tender. I've never had anything like it before, Sito. Haha, you react exactly as I thought you would when it comes to food. Please take your time and eat slowly. The food isn't going anywhere, after all, Satis. With that, she picked up her knife and fork, cut a piece of meat, and put it in her mouth in an elegant motion. Sito tried to imitate her, but for him, who had no experience with that sort of stuff, it was as complicated as learning a high-grade skill. You're free to eat in the manner that makes it easiest for you, you know? I eat this way because I like it. You don't have to match what I do, Satis. The way you eat, is that what they call table manners? The big shots use them a lot, Sito. Well, I guess. So you know about manners. I'm a bit surprised, Satis. Satis already thought so back when they were enemies, but even after they made peace and started spending time together, she always found him full of surprises. His fighting ability was one thing, but even more remarkable were his words and attitude. The reality boy soldiers faced was usually a rough one. They were forced to fight in an unfulfilling environment. They were brutal, unpredictable, uneducated, makeshift soldiers. However, this boy was pretty far removed from that depiction, even though he had experienced the extreme tension of the battlefield for so long since he was a child. On the battlefield, he was a devil who mercilessly killed his enemies, but outside of it, he behaved like a boy who conversed like an adult. He spoke clearly, and always with an air of confidence. And that's Sito, the boy enjoying his meal in front of me. Satis. You really are an unusual one, Satis. I think you said the same thing this morning, Sito. No, what I mean is, I find you different from other boy soldiers. I thought you seemed mature for your age, but now you behave like a child. It's hard to believe that you were a boy soldier, Satis. So that's what you meant, Sito. Sito wiped his mouth with a napkin. He poked the meatballs on his plate with his fork and rolled them around as he followed up on the topic. I had more contact with adults than with the other boy soldiers. I was sometimes allowed to accompany them on special missions, and it's during those times that I adapted myself by imitating the adults' manner of speech and behavior. Sito. For what purpose? Satis. I don't know anymore. I think at first, I was telling myself that maybe becoming an adult would ease my suffering a little. Now I've forgotten why. I guess all the time I've spent mimicking adults has resulted in me developing my current personality, Sito. I don't think mimicry is enough to bring someone closer to adulthood mentally, but in your case, maybe it is. I wonder if this is also due to your magic sword aptitude, Satis. Who knows? We were soldiers, not slaves. Our lives were tough, but earning war achievements could get you a social status, or even an education. But most of the guys who aimed for those wound up dead, Sito. He stuck his fork into a meatball, and brought it to his mouth. He swallowed after a few bites, and gulped down a glass of water. Had you no desire for a social status? How can someone of your caliber be so undervalued? Satis. I never knew what the grown-ups found beneficial. For us boy soldiers, their words were the law of this world. If they didn't find any value in me, then I didn't deserve to be valued. I've always wondered why, though. Even though I had been working so hard. But I didn't want them to get mad at me or even kill me for defying them. Sito. A closed environment in which he lived as part of the closed circle of boy soldiers with the adults as their gods. Did he get this far in such an environment just with his inborn sensitivity? If so, then he was nonsensical since birth. No matter how much he insisted that he was not a slave, he had a unique development in an environment where everyone was oppressed mentally and physically. It gave the impression of something close to mutation, growing up under special conditions that set him apart from others. And he was trying to make up for his worn-out mind by acting, behaving, and doing everything like an adult. Thus, he acquired a spirit and a manner of speech that did not match his age. However, being abandoned by the hero's party was apparently still as shocking to him as anyone would expect. Losing his place in one breath seemed to have granted him a sense of resignation. But you know, I'm jealous of everyone here, Sito. Eh? Satis. I've spent so much time imitating the adults, so much time fighting with them, that I don't even know who is the real me anymore. That's why I envy people like you and the citizens of this town who can laugh and get angry from the bottom of their hearts, Sito. His reply was calm. He was smiling. It was a bright smile befitting of his age. One thing became clear upon seeing this: that sparkle in his eyes when he invited Satis to accompany him on his journey, and that childlike look on his face that he directed at his food, and then at Satis. These were his bright and beautiful emotions, that is, his own true self. That remained in his grumbling heart. That much was enough to understand that he had a wonderful human side to him, and not just the emotions of a soldier. It was simply hard for others to realize that. Sorry. I guess this is kind of a depressing topic, Sito. Not at all, it's alright. I feel like I understand you little better now, Satis. Really? But it wasn't particularly interesting, right? Sito. It helped me understand that you're a wonderful boy, I guess, Satis. Please don't compliment me without warning, Sito. Satis chuckled teasingly at Sito's blushing face. The two finished eating and were about to return to their room when Sito stopped her. Say, why don't we go for a walk? Sito. Eh? What's the matter? Don't you want to rest? Satis. For some reason, I wanna go on a stroll with you, Sito. Oh my. Was this a gentleman's pick-up line to accompany a lady? It didn't look like you were trying to copy someone else. Satis. Well, I don't know about that. I just said what came to mind, Sito. Satis smiled mischievously at Sito's every single reaction as she stood next to him and joined hands with him. Okay, walking around the city at night doesn't sound like a bad idea, especially if it's with you, right? Satis. Why yeah, Sito. Sito replied happily and squeezed her hand back. They cheerfully walked through the city at night until they returned to their room. What is this feeling? I've never felt anything like that before, Sito. The path he walked hand in hand with her felt more enjoyable than any other before. His heart was pounding, but strangely enough, it did not feel so bad for him. It was the first time Sito had ever felt that way. Chapter 9. We quickly suffered a setback. Chapter 9. We quickly suffered a setback. At the same time, the hero's party that had expelled the boy soldiers Sito was being attacked by monsters. Just as they were about to hit the sack, knowing that they had to wake up early the next day, the hero and his friends found themselves in great trouble. Damn it, there are too many of them, Member A. Don't panic. We must split up and destroy the enemy, hero. They were currently a party of 4. McLean the monk and Angelica the sorceress were in charge of supporting the rear and counter-attacking. They lacked experience in actual combat, but they were still highly skilled spellcasters. I don't have enough time to cast my spells. Somebody draw the enemy away. At this rate, I won't be able to use magic, Angelica. That won't be possible, Angelica. I already have my hands full here, Member A. Hydra. The one who shouted was a member of the Vanguard named Hydra, a female martial artist who became a master of the continental martial art at a young age, and specialized herself in high-speed, successive sword blows, Her speed rivaled that of the hero, but her firepower was not as great. Despite her tremendous barrage of blows, the monster's durability was giving this girl a hard time. As for the hero, Reed, he was also unable to unleash his full power due to the monster's numerical advantage. No matter how many times he sliced and diced them, he was starting to be overwhelmed by the momentum of the enemies who were crossing over the corpses. Eek! Oh Lord, McLean. McLean was also being chased around by monsters, unable to deploy his spells. Their party was completely outnumbered. Retreat. We have to retreat, Hero/Reed. Wow, but Angelica, they'll wipe us out if we don't. Someone hold them off to buy us some time, Reed. There are too many of them for that, Hydra. While they were arguing, the monsters drew closer and closer. As if to say that now was the perfect opportunity, they gathered their strength, and directed their raging fighting spirit and bloodlust at the party. The latter fled full speed ahead, leaving most of their belongings behind. The place where they escaped while running from the monsters on their tail was deep inside an obscure valley illuminated by the moonlight. There was no greenery around them, only rocky surfaces as far as the eye could see. There were also animal bones lying here and there, and the howling of predators could be heard in the distance. The four of them were drowning in darkness and gloominess. Pant. Damn it. I can't believe we ended up in a place like this. Reed. The hero clicked his tongue. All of them slumped down from exhaustion. All the hard work they had put into getting so far had gone to waste. Most of their belongings were left behind, and the monsters were probably laying waste to them at the moment. All the hero's party had now was only the bare minimum in terms of equipment. Their fatigue and feeling of hopelessness made Angelica the sorceress panic. My God. What the hell? What just happened? We finally managed to get this far, and now we have to start all over again? I can't take it anymore. Angelica, calm down. Hydra, stay calm. Angelica, you may be right, but we mustn't lose our composure. McLean and Hydra tried to cool her down, but her curses echoed throughout the valley. If you people had done your job properly and kept the enemy at bay, none of this would have happened. You heard me. This is all your fault. Because you all messed up, not only was I humiliated, but I even lost my precious luggage. Angelica, will you shut up for a second? Reed. Being the daughter of an aristocrat, Angelica was really prideful, and once she blew a fuse, it took a long time for her to cool down. Not to mention, lashing out now of all times was an extremely bad idea. Everyone in the party was mentally shaken. If she kept cursing at them in such a situation, then, did you just tell me to shut up? This is all your responsibility, Reed-san. That's right. It's all because you failed as our leader, Angelica. I'm begging you, just calm down. This is no time to be arguing, Reed. How do you expect me to calm down after that? Angelica. Angelica's verb abuse persisted without a stop, and she even bared her fangs at Reed. Quit blaming it on Reed, Hydra. Say what? You're just a commoner with nothing to show for herself but her martial art, so know your place. You're responsible as well, you know. How do you expect to make the rest of this journey with those shoddy skills of yours? Angelica, damn you. I don't care if you criticize me, but if you're going to insult the fruits of my father's labor, that is the martial art he spent his entire life creating, then even if we're teammates, I'll show you no mercy. Hydra. Seeing Hydra on the verge of drawing her sword, McLean frantically stopped her, and stood between the two women. Both of them were in such a state of agitation that instead of a squabble, it could have degenerated into an actual fight to the death. This was how much the two women had been on edge. Stop it, both of you. We should consider ourselves fortunate to be alive. Let's simply focus on surviving, McLean. While they were still in the foul mood, McLean's words helped dispel their killing intent. But then, Angelica asked Reed a question. Tell me, Reed-san, why exactly did you have to pick a time like this to expel that plebeian Sito? Angelica. Sito. Reed. Yes, our party's firepower was dramatically reduced because you kicked him out. That battle earlier would have definitely played out differently if that boy soldier had been there. At the very least, even if we hadn't managed to break through the enemy, we would have had an easier time retreating. And we wouldn't be this exhausted. Angelica, that guy was no good. His power wasn't made to save humanity. It was only good for spreading carnage. Reed. Does this look like the time to be saying something so irresponsibly naive? Did it never cross your mind that a power like his would have proven useful in a violent battle? Angelica. Oh, shut up already. You voted him out of the party, too, Reed. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have agreed to it, Angelica. Now, the argument between Reed the hero and Angelica the sorceress was getting heated up. They were practically penniless, with barely any food and water. They were in an utterly critical situation, like a squadron cut off from the world with no hope of being rescued. Everybody, please calm down. Arguing will not change anything. First, we must cross this valley, and find a settlement. Then we can recover our strengths and resume our quest. McLean. Angelica remained silent at McLean's words, but glared sharply at Reed as she broodingly turned her back on him. As for Hydra, she hung her head down as if to say her spirit had given up. First, they were going to rest. Then, they would search for a settlement. Just as they had made up their minds on that, Angelica spoke up again. So who's going to stand guard while we rest? Thanks to a certain someone, that plebeian is gone, remember? Angelica. All right, I'll do it. You guys go rest. Reed. The hero's party were brought into a state of extreme weariness. But someone had to keep watch, otherwise they may be attacked again. Given the atmosphere, even if he suggested they take turns to keep watch, the others would undoubtedly refuse. So he decided to stay awake and do it. Normally, he would have left this sort of task to Sito. He would keep watch for only 2 hours, and then let Sito take over for the rest of the night. On one occasion, he even had him stand guard without sleeping at all. Shit. Why the hell is this happening? I didn't do anything wrong, Reed. While everyone was asleep, the hero's mental health declined as he cursed from the darkness of the ghastly valley. Chapter 10. For me, that night felt like a dream. Chapter 10. For me, that night felt like a dream. Going on a walk with her was one of the best experiences of his life. Time flowed peacefully as he walked with her through the illuminated streets. It was a sight they would have never been able to experience had they remained a soldier and a top executive. Satis and Sito burned the view into their memories. At that moment, in this area free of conflicts, they could feel their own hearts relaxing. How pretty. I've never been on a stroll like this before, Satis. Yeah, I agree, Sito. There were all sorts of faces among the people they passed by. Some were tired from work and staggering back home, and others were drunken adventurers who were vigorously going from one bar to the next. Their lives blended into the light of the city, adding one layer of depth to its bustling atmosphere. The strong aroma of liquor and food that wafted through the air from time to time, the enthusiasm produced by the people, and the unique and powerful rhythms and swinging music that could be heard from place to place. All of these formed a single world. And in the midst of all this, Satis, who was walking beside the boy, seemed to be shining brightly. Her figure appeared more glamorous as she walked, with the glow of her skin shimmering in the city lights. Her outfit was already so revealing as it was that rather than a small evening stroll, it looked more like a passionate time between a man and a woman. Sito, who was having those feelings for the first time, endured them while seemingly protecting Satis from her surroundings as they walked. This scene was like something out of a fairy tale, so much so that the boy was wondering if he was not in the middle of a dream. Is this what they call a normal life? Sito. They walked for a while before returning to the inn. This day was regrettably drawing to a close. They would go to sleep and welcome a new tomorrow. Sito felt slightly frustrated as he wished to experience the atmosphere of the night a bit longer. But he was indeed tired and needed rest, and so did Satis, surely enough. But just as they entered the room with the intent to go to sleep, they realized that there was only one bed. Since Satis was the one who checked in, Sito had no idea what sort of room they got. I'm sorry, this was their last available room, Satis. Slightly dingy white walls decorated with a painting drawn by some artist. A single carpet on the floor, and a table on top of it. It was not a luxurious room, but for Sito, it was more than enough. No problem. I'll sleep on the floor, you can use the bed, Sito. Sito said it as if it were a matter of course. But Satis refused. That's out of the question. After all the trouble we went through to find a room, I won't let you sleep on the floor, Satis. No, but, no matter how you slice it, aren't you the one who should use the bed? Or do you want to sleep on the floor? Sito. That's not what I meant. Why don't we both use it? Satis. Sito paused. For a moment, He could not compute what the woman in front of him was saying. Huh? Use? Sito. No, like I said. Let's sleep on the bed together, Satis. Sito. Oh? Could it be that you're feeling shy? Ahaha. You're adorable, Satis. No, I mean, you're okay with it? Sito. I don't really mind, as long as it's with you, okay? Satis. Satis smiled teasingly. Sito wondered with a look of embarrassment and shame if this was what they called an adult's composure. Even though he had pretty much never been involved with women so far, he somehow received an invitation from the raving beauty in front of him. Never mind his relations with the opposite sex, all his interpersonal relationships were somewhat questionable, so there was no way for him to know how to deal with such a situation. What's the matter, Tilda? Could it be that someone here is having indecent thoughts? Tilda. Satis. No, I'm not. I just, Sito. Touching me is a no-no, okay? Satis. She then used spatial magic to open a hole that looked like an entrance, and walked into it. It was apparently to change into her nightwear. In the meantime, Sito took off his equipment and other items to make himself comfortable. Then he sat on the edge of the bed, head in hands, and pondering. I've never faced a situation like this before. Even the adults never taught me about it. Sito. Meanwhile, Satis reappeared while yawning. The top and bottom were mainly black, but still as revealing as her usual outfit. The top was a tube top that covered her ample bosom, with a pair of loose-fitting shorts. Her usual ponytail was undone, and her glasses were stored away. Upon seeing Satis as he had never seen her before, Sito subconsciously froze up. Am I gonna have to sleep in this situation? Right next to Satis in that outfit? No way I can do that, Sito. A sense of resignation in Sito told him that he would not be able to sleep tonight. Perhaps it was due to the overdose of stimulation, but he stopped thinking entirely. Oh my. Aren't you going to say something? Like, that looks good on you, maybe, Satis. What do grown-ups do at times like this? Sito. I have no idea, either, Tilda. Satis. She said so in a playful tone, and sat down on the bed so she would be back to back with him. I see you're not looking my way, Satis. Don't tease me, Sito. I did say you couldn't touch me, but I didn't say you couldn't look at me, you know? Satis. Satis giggled at the boy, who was blushing hard and seemed vulnerable. She was completely leading him by the nose. He was once again made aware of the strength of the woman who was once his enemy. Now, shall we go to sleep? Satis. No, I don't think I'll be able to, Sito. Don't worry, I guarantee that you will have a good night's sleep, Satis. He found that hard to believe, but for the time being, he decided to lie down. He was on his back, and staring at the ceiling with his eyes wide open. One glance at Satis sleeping right next to him, and he would find himself unable to sleep for sure. Just after he had resigned himself to not moving a muscle until morning, he smelled a gentle and pleasant perfume. It must have been the aroma of flowers or something, but either way, it made him feel extremely relaxed. The tension in his body began to leave his body, and a vague feeling of drowsiness began to overtake him. He had no idea what was happening, but he could not think too deeply about it either. At that moment, Satis, who was lying down next to Sito, caressed his cheek with her left hand. Then she whispered to him in a sweet, gentle tone. I told you, didn't I, that you would sleep well, Satis? This is Sito just using a little spell. Now, let yourself go. It's okay. Nothing here will hurt you, so you're free to rest. That's a good boy, Satis. Sito. Because he kept facing upward, he could not see her face. And even if he wanted to, he could no longer move a muscle. Sito fell into a carefree slumber while enveloped in her warmth and fragrance. His light snoring echoed silently in the dim room. As the moonlight penetrated into the room through the window and curtains, Satis continued to stroke Sito's head as he slept. Honestly, this boy is such a handful, Satis. Her smile was full of affection. It was a new expression that she would have never been able to show back in the Demon King's army. The heart that was once broken by the terrible violence she suffered, the new feelings she had developed so far since her meeting with Sito, and the affection that Satis, who had never loved anyone, allowed herself to direct at him. With a smile on her face, she closed her eyelids and fell asleep. The city that was once so full of life was now silent. The moonlight and the darkness provided them with the same amount of rest, which lasted until the next morning. Chapter 11. Last night passed like a nebulous fleeting dream. Chapter 11. Last night passed like a nebulous fleeting dream. He could feel a faint light hitting his eyelids. When he opened them, the morning colors stimulated his eyes, like the bustle of people did for his ears. Is it morning already, Sito? Usually, he would wake up earlier than that. But on this particular day, he apparently slept much longer than that. Indeed, he was sleeping on the same bed as Satis last night. What? No way. Did I? Seriously? Sito. Upon remembering the events of last night and waking up at once, Sito jumped out of the bed. Perhaps it was due to feeling shaken by the first time he ever thought of having a grown woman sleep together with him. But he fell off the bed. Sito hit his head on the floor with a loud bang, and felt so ashamed he could not move from his position. Or rather, he did not want to move, because if he did, he would be reminded of last night. He did not have the endurance needed to bear with a shameful past event that he did not want to remember. What are you even doing? Satis. He heard Satis' voice. She was already dressed up, and apparently waiting for Sito to wake up. As she looked down at Sito, who was slumped on the floor in a strange position, Satis invited him to breakfast. What? You say you don't need it for now? You can't ship it. Breakfast is the most important meal, Satis. Then help me get up. I don't think I can move. Sito. Get up on your own, Satis. Satis' harsh tone in the morning made Sito reluctant to get up. His face was flushed, and he was averting his eyes from her. He was having such a hard time putting his words together that he could not even say hi. Are you feeling sick? You don't seem to have a fever, though, Satis. I'm fine. Really, Sito. When she suddenly touched his forehead, he flinched in a panic. He started gearing up, but he could not do it as quickly as usual. His heart was pounding, and his hands were shaking. Damn it. What the hell is going on with me? This has never happened before. Sito. He managed to finish getting ready, and turned in Satis' direction. She was leaning against the wall near the door, smiling kindly and waiting for him. Sito's heart was instantly put at ease by that smile. He did not know why, but seeing it calmed him down. He could not hide his confusion at his own sudden change of heart, but for the time being, he went to breakfast with Satis. They took the same seats as the day before, on the edge of the room. Strangely enough, they felt at ease there. Sito felt as if he had been here many times in the past with Satis. It was a nostalgic sensation that he was not supposed to have in his daily life, considering that his past only revolved around the battlefield. This strange feeling made him feel at home, somehow. With this thought in mind, he and his companion took their seats. For breakfast, they had light soup with bread, and hot scrambled eggs with plenty of ketchup. Having this much to eat for a morning meal alone was like a dream for him. At this peaceful time, people were gathering in the market outside, bringing life to the city. In this space far away from the battlefield, the two of them enjoyed their time together. But I just can't help but stare at her. Sito. Perhaps it was because of their height difference, but his eyes kept drifting towards Satis, who was sitting in front of him, and her chest. He had never been so aware of it before, but her sensual combat suit just put so much emphasis on shaping her lovely cleavage. Her lips moved in a seductive manner as she ate, and her eyes sparkled serenely during this time of relaxation. She had the best proportions a woman could have, something he never noticed at all back when they were enemies. But after what happened last night, Sito had developed some sort of guilt he felt for seeing Satis in such a naughty way sometimes. What's the matter? You've been staring at me for a while now, Satis. Have I? It's nothing, I'm the same as usual, Sito. Satis. Slightly flustered, Sito quickened the pace of his eating so he could focus only on his meal. At that moment, Satis quickly reached out for Sito's lower lip and touched it with her fingertip. That alone startled him. He was wondering what this was about, but apparently, he had a bit of ketchup on it, which she wiped off with her fingertip. But then, Satis licked it off in an easygoing manner, as if it were the natural thing to do, without taking her eyes off Sito, and while staring at him. Wow! Sito. For a naughty boy who gawks at a woman's bust, this is the most fitting punishment, right? Satis. After saying that, she smiled wickedly and sipped her coffee in silence. Sito also tried to bring his glass of water to his mouth, but his hands were shaking so much he spilled some of it. Is this woman trying to kill me? Thought Sito, desperately trying to repress the feeling that he might die in agony here and now. If this kept happening, he could actually die. That was just how sensual and alluring she was. Think of something and regain your composure. I'm a soldier, 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 I'm a soldier. Alright, Sito. He was done thinking and suggested a program for today. Hey, Satis, how about we split up for today? Sito. Eh? Satis. I was thinking about doing a lot of sightseeing in town. So, what do you think? Sito. And you don't want me to come with you? Don't you want to enjoy the beauty of this city during daytime? Just the two of us? Satis. He was at a loss for words. Satis' offer was way too tempting for him at the moment. Spending time with her, just the thought of it made his heart flutter. Satis seemed to have completely seen through his ruse, and deliberately emphasized her breasts while resting her chin in her hand as she glamorously gazed at him. It's no use. I can't win against her. Sito. Immediately after that instinctive realization, Satis chuckled. Foo. I guess I teased you a bit too much. Alright. Let's go along with your suggestion today, Satis. Eh? Are you sure? Sito. However, make sure not to get involved in any fight. And if you do get involved anyway, please refrain from using your magic sword. Satis. Why? Refrain? Sito. Magic swords are much more powerful than any regular weapon. Imagine what people would think if they saw a child wielding something so dangerous. Satis. You mean that I would attract danger from every direction? Sito. Well, roughly speaking, yes. Because in the eyes of people who are used to their peaceful lives, a child who can use a magic sword is, Satis, a monster. Sito. Besides, there's also the possibility that some people would make you use this power for war again. Now that you've finally achieved a peaceful life, you don't want to go back to the battlefield, do you? Satis. You're right. I understand. I'll keep my promise, Sito. Thus, they decided to act separately today. Apparently, Satis wanted to gather information and visit all sorts of places in the city. In all honesty, he was not comfortable with Satis being the only one to do all the work. However, all she responded to that was the following. You go enjoy your childhood and have fun. I'll let you know right away if I ever need your help, Satis. Taking her up on her offer, Sito walked alone in the city. This was the first time he had ever walked the streets like this. The overflow crowd was a fresh sight for him. As he roamed the streets without much to do, he bumped into someone at a corner. Sorry. Are you okay? Sito. When he addressed the other party. Ow, hey, watch where you're going. Oh wait, it's just you, boy. And here I thought we wouldn't meet again. Ha. Now that's a strange coincidence. Holmes. You're Holmes? Sito. It turned out to be the dandy man he met in the bathhouse. Chapter 12. I got a bad feeling when I heard they were bringing that thing to this city. Chapter 12. I got a bad feeling when I heard they were bringing that thing to this city. Never thought I'd run into you in a place like this, boy. Well damn, now I feel mighty embarrassed for trying to look cool back in the bathhouse. Holmes. I thought you had left the city. Sito. I'm here for a job. You're not with that hottie today? Holmes. No. Well, Sito. Aha, I see how it is, Holmes. Holmes looked at Sito, then he smirked as if he had guessed something. What? I'm not hiding anything, Sito. Now, no need to yell like that. I've got free time before going to work. So let's go for a walk. You hungry, boy? Holmes. I already ate. When you say you've got work, what kind is it exactly? Sito. Sito chatted with Holmes, the bearded dandy man he met in the bathhouse by chance. As they walked through the city, along the way, they saw not only the residents of this town, but also merchants from far away, and adventurers who were on their way to the dungeon, walking with dignified looks on their faces. Drunken vagrants were sitting in the shadows of back alleys, leaning against the walls. The city during daytime was as colorful as it was during nighttime. And so, the slain monsters are brought to this city and transported to a plaza in the southern section. That's where craftsmen harvest the parts of the corpses that could be used as materials. Holmes. I did hear about such craftsmen, but, Sito. Then the cut parts are magically preserved and transported to a different city to be processed into items. Some soldiers from the country are in charge of bringing the monsters here. As for me, I meet up with them, and we head to the next town. Holmes. The fact that weapons, armor and other items can be made from the body parts of monsters is common knowledge. But I never thought they would be doing one step of the process in this city. Sito, you can go watch them work if you like. It's free. And it'd make a nice dating spot for you and that sexy lady, don't you think? Holmes, no, you're mistaken. She and I aren't. Sito, nah, I can tell. She's like the older girl from your neighborhood who's been looking after you. Then all of a sudden, you started to see her as a member of the opposite sex, and you feel nervous because of it, right? Holmes, Sito, ha. Come on boy, this ain't nothing for you to feel ashamed of. Course you're bound to fall for her given how gorgeous she is. That's just man's nature. Holmes. The boy was being consoled by a man he had met only the day before. The way the latter led the former around by the nose, similar to what Satis did with him, made Sito feel uncomfortable. Welp, I think those guys should be here any second now. I gotta go. You know your way back home? Holmes. Yeah, I'll be fine. By the way, I realize I've never told you my name. It's Sito. No need to tell me. I'll just keep calling you boy. I don't wanna bother remembering names. Holmes. After he walked away and the boy saw him off, the latter resumed his stroll. The main avenue of the city was crowded with people. Both adults and children were excitedly waiting for the monsters to be brought to the area. This piqued Sito's interest, so he waited with them. Soon after, the captive monster was brought in a huge car. It was as large as a massive boulder. It was a stout, quadrupedal variety of dragon, bleeding from wounds he sustained in battle. Surrounded by many soldiers, it was being moved to the southern district. Children were merrily chasing after it. Amidst the commotion caused by the people and the monster being carried away, Sito quietly remembered Satis. She was still traumatized by monsters. Her face had regained much more life since then, and she had recovered just enough to joke around with Sito. But her trauma still ran deep. Does Satis know about that monster coming to this city? Well, it's dead, so I don't think it'll be a problem. But, Sito, it was just a guess, but she probably did not know about it. She may have known about the harvesting itself taking place in this town, but she had no way of knowing it was today. Satis was in the middle of gathering information. Chances were that she would hear about it soon. Maybe I should go check this out. Sito headed toward the southern district. While somewhat in a hurry, he followed after the monster and the army corps that was hauling it at this very moment. They just had to bring a monster here now of all times. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. Sito. His hunch turned out to be right on the mark. The monster that had supposedly been killed suddenly awakened and began to rampage. The plaza in the southern district was filled with screams and chaos. The soldiers tried to fight it, but they were helplessly blown away by the enraged monster's brute strength. Sito attempted to manifest his sword, but then, his promise to Satis flashed into his head. But the only one who can fight here is Sito. Looking around, the majority of the people were running away, and those who were able to fight were getting cold feet due to the monster's might. If he rushed at it now, the damage caused would be minimal. But, hey boy, didn't think I'd see you here. You gotta get the hell outta here. You won't stand a chance against that thing, Holmes. But if we don't intervene, it'll cause irreversible damage. Oh, over there, it's Sito. Sito looked in a certain direction. It was a bit away from the plaza, but near the fountain standing on the road leading to that plaza. Satis was standing among the crowd. She was shaking in fear, just like last time. She was probably just passing by the area, but by a stroke of bad luck, she had run into the beast. However, when the monster suddenly rose from the ground and roared its lungs out, her trauma returned, leaving her unable to move. Sensing that she was frightened even from afar, Sito had the following thoughts. If he drew his magic sword, he could help her, but doing this would mean showing his power in front of the crowd, which would mean breaking his promise to Satis. That was something he did not want to do. But if nothing was done, the damage done would be too consequential. Damn it, I gotta do something. But the promise, no, never mind that, it's her life that matters. In the meantime, the monster started to move, and of all things, it turned in Satis' direction. Hey, boy, hurry up and run. Holmes. No, I'm not running away. Sito. What are you? Holmes. Running isn't an option. I don't want to break my promise to Satis, but there's no way in hell I'm gonna lose her. Sito. Having reaffirmed his determination, Sita rushed off at full speed. All sorts of items were scattered on the ground after the stools were knocked down in the middle of the panic. They were now free for use. I need a way to fight without my magic sword, and without standing out. Satis, I'll save you. Sito. He was, without a doubt, making the face of a soldier. It was the look of a man who had steeled his heart to carry out his mission. Chapter 13. In order to deal with this incident, I decided to don a monkey mask. Chapter 13. In order to deal with this incident, I decided to don a monkey mask. After parting with Sito, Satis went to talk to the citizens to gather information and ascertain the current state of affairs. During that time, many guys tried to flirt with her, but she kept ignoring them as she always did, and looked for a place where she could catch her breath. Then she learned that a monster was being hauled into the city today. Today? I've certainly heard of harvesting taking place here before, but isn't it too early in the season? Satis. Well, it seems that the beast in question is an unusual one, a rare monster I think. The soldiers of the subjugation squad managed to successfully bring it down, apparently, and the king ordered for them to speed things up a bit. Citizen I see, Satis. Every part of the monster would be cut open. As she was now, simply imagining it was a frightening sight for her. She felt as if this could have been her fate, so she decided to avoid the area where the plaza was located. She moved through the crowd and was just in front of the fountain when the incident occurred. Oi! The monster is coming this way. Citizen B. The monster that was supposed to have been slain woke up, let out a roar that sounded like creaking metal, and began to rampage. In the middle of the crowd trying to flee from the light of the monster coming their way, Satis was paralyzed once again. Her breathing was erratic, and she was shivering all over. In all honesty, if Satis was inclined to, she could easily defeat a monster of this level in a single blow. If she needed her mana to launch an attack, it would probably be enough to bring it down. However, her trauma surfaced once again, making her unable to move. It's happening again. I can't move, even though I managed to get this far, even though I managed to stay alive. Am I just fated to die, after all? Satis. Many images of Sito and his innocent expression flashed into her mind. To her, those times were precious memories. When she saw the monster approaching faster than the humans running for their lives, Satis prepared herself for the worst. She closed her eyes, and both thanked and apologized to Sito in silence. The screams of the people and the sound of the monster's footsteps grew louder, and just as the tremor was getting closer, it suddenly came to a stop. The monster groaned loudly, and was in pain. Satis opened her eyes and checked the situation. The surrounding people who failed to escape were stunned by what they saw. Right in front of the monster, who flinched after being hit by a quick slashing attack, stood a lone boyish figure. Seeing him from behind, he was wearing a peculiar costume that looked like black cloth wrapped around his entire body and above his clothes. Amidst the lingering fear, everyone was giving him dubious looks, but only Satis realized the true identity of the man in black. Say, two? Satis. Who's that? I don't know anyone by that name. I'm Sito. Sito turned around and feigned ignorance. He also had black cloth wrapped around his entire head, and a mask over his face. Just a monkey passing by. Sito. Wearing the mask of a monkey with a silly face, he shouted and held up two swords that he had most likely taken from dead soldiers. The monster regained his posture, shook his head lightly, and glared at the boy. The sudden appearance of the young swordsman who called himself a monkey left the citizens astonished, their fear forgotten for an instant. However, the way he fought was beyond their imagination. He took advantage of the monster's massive stature to avoid its onslaught with acrobatics, and whenever he found a tender spot on the structure of the monster's body, he would strike at it with a slash. He dove, jumped, climbed up, then he stabbed and slashed it with his swords. Rather than a swordsman's, his fighting style was more akin to an assassin's technique. On the other hand, the monster, perhaps at the peak of its endurance and rage, gradually slowed down the pace of its attacks. In the midst of his rapid, one-sided barrage of slashes, the boy's movements grew even more precise. However, none of them could serve as a final blow, and his swords were beginning to show signs of wear and tear. Oblivious to that fact, the people around him cheered as he overpowered the creature. Attaboy, monkey, Citizen A. Go get him. Citizen B. The one they were cheering for was a boy soldier who had been abandoned by all. And right now, he was playing the role of a hero. Nevertheless, He would not let anyone know his true identity. Sito used the perfect opportunity to be appreciated and admired by everyone to keep his promise to Satis. If he fought without a disguise, he would stand out in a strange way. And if he used his magic sword, word would spread about that singularity of his, and he would likely be dragged into even more warfare. If that happened, Sito would find himself on the battlefield again, and Satis would also suffer from these turbulent times. That's why he wrapped a cloth around his body and put a mask over his face, so no one can recognize him. Satis. It was not an order, it was a verbal promise. She still wanted him to protect her, but she was deeply moved by Sito's dedication to the battle, taking it as if it were a mission, even in such an emergency situation. She was not sure if she could really let Sito protect her even though he was fighting with his life on the line. This thought lit a fire in her, and she sharpened her eyes. She would come to his aid, in the same way he did for her. Mr. Monkey, I shall back you up, Satis. Satis gathered her mana, not with the same enormous amount of power typical of demons, but with the same output as humans. Take this, Satis. The flame bullets she produced with her mana hit the monster in the face at high speed. The explosions generated a large amount of smoke, from which Sito's eyes met with Satis through the former's mask. Use your magic sword. Now that the bystanders had their field of vision blocked, he was free to deliver the coup de grace. Satis had created this opportunity by overcoming her trauma. Sito smiled under his mask as he found such an abrupt feat to be simply incredible. He tossed away his two swords, which had lost their edge, and got ready to use a sword technique similar to the sword-based martial art Batujutsu, from a Far East Island country. https://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/bat%c5% 8 jutsu. The monster flinched as it opened its eyes slightly. In front of him was that annoying monkey swordsman. In the middle of all that smoke, as it was about to rush and bite down on him, the boar used his magic sword to reap its head in a flash. It happened just like his fight with the monsters from the other day. When he defeated that boar monster, he did so by summoning his magic sword out of thin air. What he did now was the same. His magic sword shot out of the side of his waist from the hilt at super high speed. He grabbed it at the right moment and swung it in an arc. It was a light speed slash. The tip of the sword, which contained the most energy while maintaining super high speed, dealt a fatal blow to the monster. The magic sword, which was at the end of its swing, was instantly stored back into its dimensional pocket. From the bystander's point of view, it was like an instant slash. The monster, who was caught completely off guard, died without letting out even one final cry as a torrent of blood gushed out from its gash. By the time the smoke was cleared by the wind from the sword, it was all over. The citizens who witnessed all this cheered excitedly, and praised the two protagonists for their bravery. They also praised Satis for her immediate backup, and showered Sito, who was hiding his true identity with a monkey mask, with words of gratitude. The boy, however, paid no mind to their excitement and dashed off. Satis also used her magic to teleport away to an unpopulated location. When Satis walked away from there and back to their room, she was greeted by Sito, looking nonchalant and humming to himself. Then, as if to play dumb, he spoke up. Hey, about time you came back. I heard things got hectic at the Southern Plaza. You okay? Sito. Yes, all thanks to you coming to my rescue, Satis. What do you mean? I just returned to our room a little ahead of time. I think you're confusing me with some monkey from who knows where. Sito. Foo. Perhaps I am. And thanks to him, I managed to make one step forward. Satis. I see. Sito. Sito walked to the window and looked out over the city. While their excitement was still high, the people started a huge commotion about celebrating the extermination of the monster. Sito, I think it's time for us to leave this city. What do you say? Satis. Yeah, good idea, Sito. Their peaceful voices filled the wooden room. After a short rest, they decided to leave inconspicuously. They had already decided on their next destination, a village located further north from this town. Until then, they enjoyed their time alone together in this room. They sat on the bed, huddled together, holding hands. That was enough for them for now. Chapter 14. Dark clouds hang over the Demon King's army, and a deadly blade is coming for the heroes' party. Chapter 14. Dark clouds hang over the Demon King's army, and a deadly blade is coming for the heroes' party. A few days had passed since then. The Demon King's army was forced to struggle against the human opposition. Overwhelmed by the military forces and schemes of the invading nations, the monsters lost their leaders on the battlefield, and were buried 6 feet under one after another. And the once vast domain of the Demon King was gradually being taken over by humans, and cleansed into a better place for them to live. Roach, why are we losing? I gave you good for nothing's better treatment than Satis, since you were all supposed to be my second wisest men after her, and yet what the hell do you have to say for yourselves? Demon King. The sound of the Demon King's shouts and his cups being thrown on the floor echoed in the throne room of the Demon King's castle. The monsters who presented themselves before the throne were shivering and bowing their heads to the Demon King. Our deepest apologies, Your Majesty. We are attempting to formulate plans to the best of our abilities, but, Monster Strategist A, the power of the humans is not to be underestimated. I must confess that back when Satis was the one devising strategies against the human armies, our progression was, Monster Strategist B. Fools. So what, then? You mean to tell me that we've lost in power compared to when that worthless woman was around? Demon King. Not at all. Nothing of the sort. However, it appears that humans have many resourceful individuals in their ranks, and they always manage to outwit us. They put those of us who excel at gaining the upper hand with sheer power at a disadvantage. Monster Strategist B. So Satis' ingenuity has always been the reason for our constant victories until now. Is that what you're saying? That I should have never stripped her of her position as a leader, plagued her with disgrace and terror, and planned to have her executed? That woman challenged the heroes' party on her own and lost over and over again. Are you all saying that I should have never ordered the disposal of a failure like her? Demon King. The Demon King laid his anger bare, vigorously rose from his throne, and scowled at the monsters. But the fact remained that Satis had done well against the human armies. Normally, the duty of eliminating the heroes' party should have been entrusted to a different commander, but she wanted to earn more military achievements. If he had persuaded Satis to lead the battle against the country, as it was back then, and let another commander take care of the heroes' party, then the outcome may have been different. She was desperate to serve the Demon King as much as she could, both in war and in battle. Looking back on it with a calm head, stripping her of her position as an army leader, lynching her and sentencing her to death may have been too hasty a decision to make. As the days passed where she did not quite get him the results he desired regarding both the war and the heroes' party, the Demon King grew considerably frustrated. As a result, he subjected Satis to torture, and the latter escaped on the day of her execution. He disregarded it as a minor issue since he thought he could find a replacement, but the result was disappointing. In reality, the void left by Satis could not be filled. At this rate, they would end up giving the humans the green light to invade their land. Find her. Find Satis immediately. That woman must still be alive and lurking somewhere. Bring her to me, Demon King. But my lord, we have already searched in the neighboring forests and territories. If we search even further, we may end up allowing the humans to proceed with their attacks. Monster Strategist C. One of the Demon King's trusted confidants voiced his opinion. The lord of the castle ground his teeth in vexation and fell silent in response. His wicked expression clearly showed his indignation. There is no way we're going to lose. We monsters are superior to all the beings in the world. We monsters can never be defeated, Demon King. His pride as the Demon King lit a fire in his heart. To him, monsters were supreme creatures. They were the superior life form. HMPH, whatever. We don't need to rely on Satis' little tricks. We only need to use our symbolically overpowering might to force the humans into submission. Keep assaulting the enemy troops. We'll crush their so-called tactics with our unstoppable power. Demon King. He let his pride cloud his judgment to the bitter end. At the words of the Demon King, all the monsters gathered in the throne room let out shouts, and swore to bring victory to him. They were ready to fight, even if they were fighting a losing battle. And then, the Demon King made a certain decision. My servants, I have made a decision. I know this will be extremely unpleasant for you pure-blooded monsters to hear, but, Demon King, could it be him? Are you thinking of dispatching that ex-human? Monster Strategist D. That's right. The newly transformed demon. The man who turned half human, half demon. Even if he's a monster, it somewhat displeases me to rely on the power of a hybrid, Demon King. Some of the monsters in the Demon King's castle had lived for hundreds of years, and the Demon King was one of them. Most of them preferred the good old days, and many put a lot of value in tradition and lineage. Therefore, those who used to be human and later became monsters were always looked down upon. No matter how powerful they were, since they were not pure monsters, they were often made into regular grunts. However, the one that was about to be dispatched was a truly exceptional being. Right now, that man was working with a goblin unit to hunt down the hero's party, located beyond a valley. That man was once a former boy soldier from a certain country, and at the same time, he's a brilliant magic swordsman. Considering his power, it would be regrettable to give him nothing but menial tasks given the situation. His power is truly effective only on the battlefield, Demon King. But, sire, he is an ex-human reject. For us higher life forms to be relying on that madman would just be monster strategist DHMPH. That doesn't matter, a battle junkie like him should be exploited to the fullest, Demon King. Thus, a message is hurriedly sent to the goblin unit. A flying creature flew to the destination of that same unit. This era was about to change drastically. That man whom the Demon King mentioned, a magic blade user filled with insanity, was moving forward one step after another in order to find a strong opponent. Chapter 15. The strongest soldier of the Demon King's army, a magic swordsman, makes his appearance. Chapter 15. The strongest soldier of the Demon King's army, a magic swordsman, makes his appearance. This took place a few hours after the Demon King had sent his message. In the deep forest beyond the valley, the hero's party and the goblin unit were engaged in battle. As the former were about to reach a town across the valley, they were approached by the latter, and hastily fought back. Their numbers are dwindling. Just a little more, and we'll force them back in one go. Reed. Under the command of the hero Reed, most of the goblins who were smiling vulgarly perished in agony. Though the party was exhausted, their fighting spirit had not yet waned. It was then that he showed up. They aren't half bad. From among the goblin unit, a character whose existence itself did not match the rest of the troop emerged. It was a sinister man who seemed to be in his 20s or 30s, walking slowly from the rear line. His naked upper body was well trained and painted with lines of several colors, and his countless scars were proof of his many hard-fought battles. His head was devoid of any hair, and his wide-open eyes were unfocused. If anything, he had not blinked at all since the past few minutes. Walking in an unsteady manner like a zombie, he stared at the hero's party with a blank look on his face. But due to his late appearance, one of the many angry goblins shouted at him. "The hell were you doing, rookie? Are you just gonna play the bystander while we do all the fucking fighting? Goblin A, or shut up. I just thought you geese would be able to handle this boring job on your own. Rookie, say what? You're just a former damn human, and a damn failure of a half-demon, yet you dare take that attitude with me? Hey, Goburoku. What kind of coach are you? We told you to supervise the new guy, didn't we? Goblin A. The goblin was seething with rage at the man who mildly talked back to him. That was when the goblin called Goburoku, who arrived even later than the man, apologized to them all. Sorry. He just keeps going at his own pace, no matter what I tell him. Besides, everything's fine now. Now that he's here, those guys are finished. Goburoku. This goblin known as Goburoku was different from the other goblins. It was not clear why he was given the cold treatment as well. But even the hero Reed realized that he was a powerful individual nonetheless. However, the man who appeared before him was even more out of the ordinary. He was a half-human, half-demon creature. He did not know exactly how it happened, but the whirlpool of killing intent leaking out from this quiet atmosphere was abnormal. All the party members sensed that he might be even more terrifying than Satis, the leader of the Demon King's army. Whatever. Hey, rookie, go give the great hero's party a taste of your power. The power of the magic swordsman Sebek, that is. Goblin A. The kanjis used for Sebek's name mean raging crocodile. When one of the leaders of the goblin unit shouted this, the man known as Sebek pulled a magic sword out of thin air. The blade was curved, enveloped in a bluish-white aura, and glowing mysteriously. What there? He's a magic swordsman. Hydra. Hydra, the female martial artist, gasped reflexively. That man possessed the same power as Sito, whom the party had once driven out. Is this a joke? I thought the Demon King's army didn't have any magic swordsmen among their ranks. Angelica. Considering that they called him Rookie, he must have joined the Demon Lord's army only recently. But what a disgrace. He was born a human, and as one of those who were chosen to wield a magic sword, yet he dared defy the will of God and his country by becoming a demon folk. McLean. Angelica the sorceress was shocked by Sebek's existence, and McLean the monk condemned him for his sins and actions. However, Sebek, still sporting an unreadable look on his face, walked up to the hero's party with his eyes still fixed on them. Being a human or a monster doesn't mean squat in battle. All I want is to kill people in a senseless carnage. But remaining human is a tad inconvenient for that, whereas becoming a monster helps me stay in my prime for a longer time. Which means I can enjoy slaughtering people for just as long. Anything wrong with that? Rookie/Sebek, you just want to kill and enjoy slaughtering people? There really isn't a single decent person among you magic swordsmen. Don't even think I'll let you get away with your atrocities. Read. Wow, here it is. That there is the face of a guy who actually believes that massacring all the monsters in the world will bring about peace. What a moron. Your idea of ridding the world of war is just ridiculous. War is fantastic. War truly is the one and only thing that ought to be preserved for posterity. Don't you think so? Sebek. Not only did he nonchalantly disregard the rage of the hero Reed, but he also outright provoked him. Sebek's pitch-black eyes were reflecting Reed's hatred with uncanny clarity. Why, you bastard? Reed, you can't bring justice without abhorring people and all the absurdities of this world. By that logic, that justice of yours is nothing but hatred. Hatred for the current world, and denial of the current world. But that's good. This world needs guys like you for war to continue. Sebek. What? Reed. But I still have a job to do. My magic sword bears the name of Apophis. Can you survive it? Sebek. The kanjis used for Apophis means snake venom. Sebek's indifferent demeanor suddenly did a 180. His body movements were now full of vigor, and he greeted the humans with an imposing stance and a glare while exuding his massive fighting spirit. Wow, what's with this guy? His aura has completely changed. It's as if he's a whole different person. The party of four also readied themselves at the same time. But just as the battle was about to begin, they were interrupted by a messenger from the Demon King. A bird-like monster landed on Sebek's shoulder and delivered a vocal message to him. The contents were as follows. You're dismissed from the Goblin unit. Relocate to the Western and Eastern theaters immediately. Messenger bird. Or so he said. Sounds like fun. I guess you finally understand how I roll, Mr. Demon King. Welp, sorry, but I'm leaving your unit. Peace out, Sebek. Huh? You bastard. You're just gonna walk out on us like that? At least finish your job, Goblin. Nah, you guys do it. Cause to be honest, my next gig sounds way more fun than dealing with those scrubs. Sebek. With a slothful expression, he stared at the four humans, who were both trembling in fear and raging in silence at being called scrubs. Sebek put his magic sword back into his dimensional pocket, turned on his heel, and hummed to himself as he left. Now I'm getting excited. But it'd be nice if I had a guide or something. Hey, Goburoku, you can be my guide. You're my supervisor, right? Sebek. Sure, Goburoku. With that, the two of them disappeared into the darkness of the forest. Meanwhile, the hero's party and the Goblin unit resumed their battle. The former took their anger at being insulted out on the goblins, and the latter embraced the frustration they felt from this irritating course of events, converted it into fighting spirit, and attacked. With their anger turned into murderous intent, the goblins' attacks got intense, with their clubs, spears, swords, and so on packing much more power than before. Gah! Reed and Hydra. Reed and Hydra were hit in the faces and flanks by their clubs. Angelica and McLean, who were in charge of the rear guard, were also hit by spears and stone projectiles, interrupting their incantations while trying to reap their lives with their deadly blades. But despite being driven into a corner, they managed to push the enemy back with an offensive that incorporated Hydra's body techniques and high-speed swordplay, along with Reed's all-out attack using his mana and his legendary sharp blade. I'll settle this in one fell swoop. Reed. Have a taste of my martial art, Hydra. I'm going to use a fire spell. Back me up. Angelica, I shall cast a spell so the fire will not spread around us. McLean. The goblins were quickly overwhelmed by the onslaught of the party, and in the blink of an eye, they were annihilated. The battle was finally over, and the heroes' party proceeded toward the next city while bearing the pain from their injuries. That intense battle has sapped their strengths, so if another one were to break out, they would be in danger of certain death. Casting healing magic to recover was also a difficult task, but resting where they stood would have been dangerous anyway. They still had a long way to go before reaching the next city. Until then, they had no supply. This hellish situation was eating away at their spirits. Even though they had won that battle, the atmosphere around the heroes' party was filled with a heavy kind of darkness. Hatred. The successive hardships and calamities they had to endure intensified the flames of hatred in them, which mercilessly burned their bonds of companionship. This battle was to be the catalyst for the party to fall apart in the blink of an eye, and the signs were already showing. Chapter 16. We were walking down the road when we found someone lying on the ground. Chapter 16. We were walking down the road when we found someone lying on the ground. The Demon King's army, the armies of each nation, and the heroes' party. Several forces vying for power and leading the world into an era of upheaval. And in the middle of all this, there were Sito and Satis walking down a road. It had been several days since they left the city of Clayshut. It's been a while since we've walked on such a peaceful road, Sito. His mages, the Demon King's forces have been dwindling as of late. Humanity has also brought peace back to some degree, and it seems that this road is now safe to use as well. Satis. Which means that the battle with the Demon King's army will soon come to an end, right? Sito. Probably, Satis. They were proceeding along this pleasant road surrounded by sunlight and a light breeze as they had this conversation. It was a little afternoon. Beyond the endless blue sky, a majestic mountain range peeked out from the clouds. Black kites were cawing in the sky, and the meadows they could see from the road had a definite tranquility that helped them forget about hell on earth. I heard that people go to places like this for picnics and to enjoy a relaxing time. Satis. What's a picnic? Sito. It's like an excursion or an outing. Well, it's basically when people go outside and enjoy themselves together. Satis. I didn't know there was such an activity. In that case, let's hope the world will be at peace soon. Sito. Sito contemplated the world as far as the eye could see with their mellow expression. After meeting Satis, he had come to learn what peace was. And it was the same for her. The two who used to scorn each other so much were now sharing such a strong bond. Their hearts were now at peace. Who would have ever thought that these two, who had lived in the carnage of the bloody battlefield, would be walking together like this? We should now be close to Benjamin Village. Apparently, people tend to call it the village of eccentrics, but that shouldn't pose any problem to us. Satis. Eccentrics. I guess we're in no position to talk either. Ha ha ha. I see something on the ground, Sito. As he continued with the casual conversations, Sito pointed ahead. Something in a large piece of cloth was curled up in the middle of the road. Is that a person? Satis. Satis observed it with a doubtful look on her face. It certainly did have a human-like silhouette, and was squirming around a bit. Is that an enemy? Sito. Unlikely. No enemy would be foolish enough to lie in wait out here in the open. In fact, if there was anyone like that among the monsters, I would never want them under my command. Satis. The two cautiously approached the piece of cloth. It seemed to be a robe, and inside it was a human, a woman in armor, a young red-haired woman, lying in a state of disarray. She's still alive. Satis. Hand me some what? Sito. In the middle of his sentence, the woman instantly grabbed Sito by the leg. She raised her face with an unsettling expression on it, and opened her mouth as she looked up at him. Water and food. Give me something to eat and drink. I haven't had anything in 3 days. Please, starving woman. Wait, are you okay, Sito? I'm not. That's why I'm telling you to give me some food and wait here. Starving woman. Whoa? Sito. After saying that, she rushed at him like a zombie. She moved in a refined manner, as if her collapsing from exhaustion had been a lie. She moved like a trained soldier. She seemed to be in a state of partial madness, yet she quickly moved to grapple him. However, she was no match for Sito, who was in perfect condition and managed to pin her down. I'm so hungry, Starving woman. So you're a soldier too. Satis, can we share some bread and water with her? Sito. My god, that was a shocker. Well, if you insist, Satis. They decided to rest there for a while. The woman voraciously ate her bread, and drank her water in one gulp. Oh dear, you devoured it so greedily. You could get a stomachache afterwards, you know? Satis smiled awkwardly at the sheer vigor of her eating. And at the same time, she wondered. This woman's armor belonged to the soldiers present in this country. However, she was acting not with a unit, but all by herself. Either she was separated from her unit, or she had fled the battlefield. Phew, Tilda. You saved me. Oh, and no need to worry about my stomach. I was born tough. Starving woman. The woman, now full of vitality, took a breath and thanked the two. Boy, I'm sorry about earlier. I was so hungry I lost my cool. Starving woman. It's okay, don't sweat it. You're a soldier, aren't you? What are you doing here? Sito. I told you, I got lost. Starving woman. According to her, due to a certain incident, she was demoted. She used to be a commander in charge of a unit, but she lost her position and was on her way to a certain village. Well, you know, all kinds of stuff happen to grown-ups. Starving woman. So that's how it is. We haven't introduced ourselves yet. I'm Sito, and my name is Satis. The two of us are traveling together. Satis. As they introduced themselves, the woman gave them a puzzled look. Sito. Satis. Now where have I heard? I can't remember. Oh well. My name is Keelim. I'm a soldier of this country assigned to Benjamin Village. Starving woman. Keelim. She scratched her head as she tried to remember, but her memory was so fuzzy she quickly gave up. This female soldier named Keelim seemed to be headed to the same destination as the two. You said you were lost, right? Why not come with us, then? Satis knows the way to Benjamin Village. Sito. Really? Oh boy. So this is what the saying in traveling, a companion, and in life, sympathy is all about. Yes. Please let me tag along, Keelim. Oh of course, we're also pleased to be of help. Satis was not pleased with Sito's decision, and rightly so. Although faintly, the female soldier still had a feeling that she knew who they were. Thinking about what might happen later on made her nervous. Don't worry, Satis. If anything goes wrong, I'll deal with it, Sito. But, Satis, besides, I'm not feeling any malicious intent from her. Kinda like that mercenary I met, Holmes. Sito. Mercenary. Well, alright. But don't force yourself, Satis. He whispered to her and managed to get her permission. It was then that he remembered that he had not told Satis about Holmes yet. The bearded dandy he met back in the city of Clayshut. For some reason, the vibe he felt from Keelim reminded him of Holmes. Although their personalities are different, I feel like they have something in common. Sito. Accompanied by the female soldier Keelim, the group set out on foot again and followed Satis' lead. On that note, it would not be until some time later that they would learn that Keelim and Holmes were in fact ex-lovers, and that this relationship had a lot to do with her demotion. Chapter 17. We arrived at Benjamin Village and met the mayor. Chapter 17. We arrived at Benjamin Village and met the mayor. Benjamin Village. A village with the open sky and a mountain range visible even from the entrance in the background. Old wooden houses were standing in rows, and they all looked so beautiful you would hardly believe that their owners were poor. Every house was not as large as a mansion, but they still looked sturdy. The fields were filled with vegetables, agricultural tools, and farmers. In the orchard, there were several women tending to the trees. Yup, we've arrived. First things first, I'll go greet the mayor. What about you guys? If you have any business in this village, you might as well say hello to the mayor first. What do you say, Keelim? You think? All right. We're coming with you, Sito. I believe if we go straight down this path, there's a relatively large house at the end, so I guess that's where we should go, Keelim. And so, the three of them went to the village mayor's house, a remote village that was rumored to be full of eccentrics. At first glance, this scenery looked as average as could be, but our travelers silently wondered just what sort of secrets this village was hiding as they went to meet the mayor. Right after demanding an audience, the three of them entered the village mayor's office. At the back of the room was her desk, surrounded by bookshelves. The room was also furnished with a table and an old sofa in the center. The mayor, who was working at her desk, sat up from her chair. She was an elderly woman, but the elegance in her appearance made her look much younger than her actual age. Welcome to my house, Keelim-san, and your companions? Mayor. Oh. These fine people are my benefactors. And seeing as they were headed to this village as well, we decided to come together. Keelim. My, is that so? Then please have a seat. Let me treat you to some tea, Mayor. Upon saying so, the mayor gave wordless instructions to her servant, and sat at the head of the table. She smiled at the three of them as they sat across the table, and gave them a few words of welcome. Welcome to Benjamin Village. My name is Scarlet, and I am the mayor of this village. And I know you are the soldier who will be working here as a guard, Keelim-san. Bow. Who are you two lovely people? Mayor/Scarlet. She calmly oriented her line of sight towards Sito and Satis. My name is Sito. And I am Satis. You could say that I'm this boy's relative, Satis. Satis replied smoothly, and Sito instantly looked in her direction. PSST. What do you mean, relative? Sito. Introducing ourselves as such will put her at ease. No, Satis. Scarlet sipped her tea after it was brought into the room while watching the two of them whispering in secret. Foo. You two are very close, I see. You remind me of the old days, Scarlet. She said that with a smile, and explained to Keelim the details of her job while engaging in small talk. An attendant immediately led the latter to her workplace. Keelim went to the building where she would live and work. After seeing her off, Scarlet went back to the sofa and addressed the other two while happily sipping her tea. Now, I apologize for asking you while you're enjoying the tea, but what brings you two to our village? Do you wish to live here, perhaps? Scarlet. Oh, number. The two of us are traveling. And since we have a long journey ahead of us, we were wondering if we could stay in your village for a few days. Of course, we don't intend to overstay our welcome, so we were hoping you would grant us permission. Satis. I see, Scarlet. Scarlet smiled. She asked a servant to bring her some documents, then she looked through them for a short while. So is there an inn in this village? Sito. Oh, that's not what these are for, Sito-kun. You see, a few house owners have recently passed away, increasing the number of unoccupied houses. I have had some of them demolished, but there are a few that are still eligible for rent. How about this one? It might be a good place for the two of you to spend some time together, Scarlet. We sincerely appreciate that you even found a place for us, Satis. Don't mention it. I can imagine how tough it must be for a woman and a child to travel on their own. Better yet, why not live in our village? Scarlet. But we're outsiders. The other villagers wouldn't accept it if we just showed up out of nowhere and decided to stay without their permission, would they? Sito. While Sito looked startled, Scarlet showed another gentle smile. You two have heard the rumors about this place, haven't you? We're a village of eccentrics. Nearly everyone here hails from the outside. Some of them used to be known as legendary heroes, and others are men who made their fortunes in business but are now penniless due to various reasons. People with all sorts of backgrounds arrived and settled here. It's as if they were drawn to this village by the magic of fairy tales, Scarlet. People were drawn to this place by a quirk of fate and a checkered destiny. So Sito and Satis wondered if they, too, had come here by that same work of fate. Satis was the one who suggested that they go to this village. Perhaps this was also their destiny. I'm sure Keelim-san must have also gone through her fair share of misfortunes before winding up here. It's strange how this village only harbors people with such circumstances. Truly, what a mystery, Scarlet. Are you sure there won't be any dispute? If people are as unique as you say, wouldn't they constantly be at odds with each other? Satis. Foo. Back when this village was established, conflicts were a daily occurrence. Men who were tired of their lives would yell at each other, and sad-looking women would watch them, laugh, and make fun of them. Now we look back on them as good memories, Scarlet. The longing look on the face of the mayor was one of beauty and nostalgia that could not be expressed in terms of age. There was no doubt that Scarlet must have watched over a great number of people in this village who still kept on living through turbulent times. And she must have also seen them off to a better world. Now, I know I should take you to that vacant house, but unfortunately, I have a lot on my hands. So I'll have one of my attendants show you the way, Scarlet. Alright. Thank you very much, Satis. We are grateful for your help, Sito. Foo. Take all your time to make yourselves at home. I will join you up later. We haven't had visitors in such a long time. I can't wait to show around the village, Scarlet. Then, An attendant led Sito and Satis to the vacant house. It was relatively small compared to the others, but it was a two-story house with 2 private rooms, and the living room was furnished with household items. Sito and Satis decided to stay in it until the mayor arrived. Chapter 18. We took a new step forward in Benjamin Village. Chapter 18. We took a new step forward in Benjamin Village. The house of Sito and Satis was located on a slightly elevated spot in the village. From the balcony on the 2nd floor, they had a sweeping view of the outside of the village, and the two of them were admiring that scenery. I see snow has been piling up all over that mountain range, Sito. The temperature up there is much lower than down here. After all, some of the flying monsters weren't accustomed to the cold, either. In such cases, we used magic to cast protection spells on them, Satis. While they were chatting about such trivia, they caught sight of the village mayor Scarlet coming over. She saw them on the balcony, and waved at them with a smile. The two of them immediately went downstairs to greet her. Phew. These little hills get tougher to climb as you grow older. So, what do you think of this house? Scarlet. We like it very much. The view from here is especially beautiful, Sito. And to think the village mayor herself would go out of her way to personally rent us such a luxurious vacant house. You have our deepest gratitude, Satis. It's all right. You two are our first visitors in ages. Now come, I'll show you around the village. Please follow me, Scarlet. Thus, with Sito and Satis following her, Scarlet started showing them around the village. As you already noticed, some of us work in the fields, but others also go hunting in the forests outside the village. We even have sorcerers among us who devote themselves to the study of magic. We also have a blacksmith, who mainly takes commissions from outside the village. Next, the only noteworthy location I can think of would be Keelim Sands Station, Scarlet. I thought the villagers here would be engaging in more radical activities than that, Sito. Foo. If you think of it as the village of eccentrics, I suppose you would. But everyone here works normally. Although, their personalities could use a bit of work, so it can be difficult, Scarlet. After saying this, Scarlet led them to the house of a certain character. Once there, they met a muscular man with brown hair and a beard. He was in the middle of chopping wood with an axe, sweating and working silently with a sour look on his face. This man is Yodu Anacondal. He's an old acquaintance of mine, and also my advisor, Scarlet. Yodu, you mean? Sito. Upon hearing his name, Sito reacted loudly. He had never met Yodu before, but he knew his name. That man is the legendary sniper. What is he doing? Sito. Before he could finish his question, Yodu stopped his work and interrupted him. He had a gloomy expression, and he was giving off an air of dejection. Calling him a hero would be no exaggeration. He was the sort of man that Sito, a former boy soldier, looked up to. However, all he did was quietly tell Sito the following. I'm not the hero you think I am. I'm just a mass murderer who has snatched the lives of others while lurking around and hiding in the shadows. Yodu. But, Sito, kid, it's the unspoken rule of this village not to pry into other people's pasts. So no more of that. Do you understand? Yodu. Yodu sat down and drank water from his canteen. The sweat from work made his skin look muddy, and the sunlight was reflected by countless droplets of it. So, Mayor, are these two new tenants? Yodu. I'm renting out a vacant house to them for a short time. They say they're on a journey together, Scarlet. Oh, impressive for such youngsters, Yodu. He took a look at Sito and Satis as he said that. Despite going from veteran warrior to villager, his discernment had not deteriorated one bit. Sito was visibly feeling nervous from meeting a hero such as him. Yodu was observing him like a superior officer looking at a new recruit. He may seem unsociable at first, but he's a good person at heart, Scarlet. Mayor, please don't say anything uncalled for, Yodu. Oh, but it's the truth, isn't it? You treat all the other villagers like your own family, and I'm grateful to you for that, Scarlet. HMPH. Yodu turned away, got up, collected the firewood he had chopped and carried it to the back of his house. I'm sorry about this. He's just a little shy, Scarlet. No, it's all right. Simply meeting him was already satisfying, Sito. But he looked awfully worn out. I wonder if he's one of those who grew sick of the battlefield, Satis. Well, you're right about that. He's been through a lot. Well, that's it for our visit. You're now free to do as you please. Oh? Scarlet. Scarlet looked up at the sky. A lone hawk flew in her direction and landed slowly. A small tube used to hold a letter was attached to its foot. Is this an express mail? How unusual at this time of the year. Oh my. I did not expect that, Scarlet. Scarlet pulled the message out of the tube, and quietly expressed her surprise at its content. Was it bad news, or, I know you two were planning to stay only for a short time, but perhaps it would be best if you stayed longer than that, Scarlet. Eh? Why is that? Are there any problems? Satis' expression turned gloomy and restless. She was having a bad feeling about the content of that message, but Scarlet gave her a gentle reply, as if to assuage her fears. Don't worry, it concerns a faraway location. Apparently, the Demon King's army is regaining momentum little by little, and it seems that tensions are rising in the neighboring countries as well, causing them to close their national borders and customs. I don't know how long it will take, but please do stay here until things have calmed down. Scarlet. Are you sure? We've only just arrived today, Sito. And in that case, please let us help out in the village, at the very least. Satis. Fufafu. You don't have to force yourselves. But the fact that you wish to do something of your own accord is wonderful in itself. I'll think about it. Until then, please make yourselves comfortable, Scarlet. For the time being, she ended their conversation on that note. Then she added, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to ask me, before leaving and going back to her own house. Sito and Satis also decided to return to the house that had been prepared for them. Still, I never thought the Demon King's army would make a comeback at this point in time. I wonder what happened, Sito. Knowing the other top executives, it should have been difficult for them to turn the tables given the circumstances. Well, except for one soldier, Satis. Do you know someone powerful among them? Sito. I do. It must have been the work of the demon army's strongest. You know what? Let's drop this topic. Why talk about the war when we've made it to such a peaceful village? Satis. You're right. I also want to fully appreciate this village life, with you, Sito. Me too, Sito, Satis. The two of them walked hand in hand along the road to their house. A gentle breeze and sunshine surrounded them, as if the ongoing war was a lie. Here, their time of tranquility and sense of calm lulled them both into a sense of peace. Sito thought that perhaps this place could become their new home. He would live here together with Satis, and eventually travel again to explore the world with her. When he envisioned such a future, he felt something warm in his chest. It was a kind of feeling he did not know, something he had felt for her many times so far. Sito wondered if this was not the feeling known as love, which he was not familiar with. Chapter 19. The Unstable, Crumbling Front Line of the Demon King's Army. Chapter 19. The Unstable, Crumbling Front Line of the Demon King's Army. You still haven't driven the humans away? Orc King. Your Grace. I'm afraid their morale is higher than ever. If they push through our troops any further, we, the almighty Demon King's army, would lose to some human army? Impossible. There is no way in hell that we of the Demon King's army, that I could ever be defeated. Orc King. The Orc King, the leader of a battalion stationed at a certain battlefield, roared in anger from inside his camp. As a group, the monsters exhibited tremendous power, but the humans used that against them, and reduced their number at once. The orcs, who were the immediate subordinates of the Orc King, were almost completely wiped out. The rest of the battalion were monsters the Demon King put under his responsibility, but there were already less than half of them left. They were at a complete numerical disadvantage, and if they fought any longer, they would find themselves outnumbered and in extreme danger. Keep moving. We must charge forward. Drive them off with all your might, Orc King. The Orc King let his anger get the better of him, gave his orders, and wasted the monsters' lives by throwing them into the fires of war in vain. The humans' ingenious formations and the military strength drove the Demon King's army into a corner, meaning that victory on this battlefield was as good as theirs. However, it was then that an unexpected element appeared. The half-human, half-demon magic swordsman, and the strongest soldier of the Demon King's army. Accompanied by the goblin Goburoku, he arrived at the encampment of the Demon King's army, and looked around the battlefield with bulging eyes. Why, you're Monstre. One of the monsters gasped. Goburoku stepped forward and explained why the man who used to be part of the goblin unit was now here. His Majesty sent us a message. From here on out, The magic sword soldier Sebek will assist you in battle, Goburoku. What's the meaning of this? Monster A. Our army is struggling on every battlefield, so we've been dispatched to turn the situation around, Goburoku. Sebek yawned as if to show his disinterest in their conversation, and took a long look at the human army that was gaining momentum. And all the while, he was trying to figure out which group was their main force, and where he should attack them from. A message from His Majesty telling that hybrid to assist us, you say? Orc King. The Orc King rocked his giant body as he walked toward them. He let out another angry roar as he glared at the creepy ex-human, who did not even take notice of him despite being the commander of this battalion. I don't need him. I don't need the help of this lowly hybrid who's neither a monster nor a human. We'll turn things over in no time. Orc King. Remind me again, who's the major loser who can't even run this joint without working the lowly hybrid to the bone? Sebek, who was gazing at the battlefield, immediately spat words of contempt at the Orc King, and everyone around him froze in place. The Orc King's mouth was agape at his remark, and he was trembling in fear. I don't care either way, there are plenty of other battlegrounds where I can play instead. But, if you use me here, I can turn the tables in one go. This'll be your win, and the Demon King will praise you. But if you kick me out now, you'll lose to the humans and die. It'll be game over for you, Sebek. The Orc King's face turned red, and his breathing was heavy. He was torn between his pride as a higher-ranked monster and his responsibility as an executive to ensure victory. After spending the past while glaring at Sebek in silence, the latter suddenly shouted out loud, "Time's running, Uyuanat!" Sebek, with his eyes wide open and a smile across his face, he gave him a stiff look, and with that same expression on his face, he pointed toward the battlefield. The Orc King came to his senses and looked in that direction. The human army was closing in on them. The monsters who were fighting on the battlefield had been annihilated. Blood drained from the Orc King's face. He was so caught up in his emotions that he completely averted his eyes from the war situation. The humans were approaching the Orc King's military camp while shouting war cries like they were cheering. Oh no. How could I lose myself like that? What a disgrace. The Orc King glanced at his most prized weapon, a giant axe. With its overwhelming destructive power, he might manage to get through this situation. However, the humans were so full of vitality that he unconsciously flinched. The Orc King, a high-ranked monster and army leader, had lost all will to fight. The enemy may have been humans, but they were no small fry. They had all the wisdom and gear they needed to subjugate the monsters. Even if he swung his axe and charged at them, it would be impossible for him to deal with so many foes. At this rate, the monsters would all be overrun at once. Protect me, all of you. Die for my sake, Orc King. Vertical bar, why your grace? Monster A. Cover my back. I'm assigning the duty of rearguard to you all. Farewell. Orc King. The Orc King abandoned the monsters who were staying at the camp, and quickly fled. Naturally, the desertion of their commander from the battleground threw the monsters into chaos, and all leadership was instantly lost. Nice. Now this is getting fun. Right, Goburoku. Sebek. Only you would think so. Here they come, Goburoku. With the exception of these two, the monsters were in disarray, while the humans rushed into the encampment of the Demon King's army. They pointed their spears, swung their swords, and threw fire spells at them. While the monsters were scattering in every direction and being crushed by the enemy's fury, Sebek wielded his magic sword and overpowered the humans. That won't be enough to satisfy me, Sebek. He slid past the feet of a soldier who tried to stab him with his spear, and with that same momentum, he struck him in the torso with his magic sword Apophis. Then, he kicked the next soldier who came at him in the face with a move similar to capoeira, and sliced him in two while he was in midair. The soldier was split in half, and in the middle of all his blood and innards splattered on the ground, Sebek rushed forward right away. He waved his blade to hack and slash all the soldiers coming from right and left, reaping their weapons and armor along with their lives. The way he dealt slash attacks while keeping his center of gravity low was terrifying, and even though he was their enemy, the humans found his swordsmanship impressive. What the hell is that magic swordsman? Is he a monster? Human A. Surround him. Stab him at once with your spears, Human B. The spearmen surrounded Sebek with their spears pointed at him. Normally, a sword would not have enough range to reach them. That was the absolute theory. Yet, in the midst of that theoretical crisis, Sebek laughed. How naive, Sebek. Suddenly, the blade of his sword glowed pale, and as if acting in conjunction with it, so did his eyes. The next moment, the power of the magic sword Apophis was activated. At that moment, Sebek just stood still. He did not move an inch, nor did he even attempt to swing his sword. Despite this, the bodies of the spearmen surrounding him were sliced apart on the spot, as if they had been slashed by invisible blades. Sebek smirked in the middle of those geysers of blood. The humans who witnessed this immediately found themselves frozen stiff, and retreated step by step. Oh, out of the way. Move it, humans. The humans were retreating, afraid of a single human-demon hybrid. However, the monsters were not victorious, because the Orc King turned tail and ran away. I wonder if Sir Orc King is safe. Goburoku. Goburoku put his sword away and walked up to Sebek. He was gasping for breath, while Sebek did not pant even once. Forget that piece of trash. He'll be killed by the Demon King the moment he makes it back to his castle anyway. But in any case, I've fulfilled my rearguard duty. Let's move to another battlefield, Sebek. Fighting is all you ever think about, huh? Goburoku. Well, you see, I just wanna fight and kill the strongest opponent. And I also wanna die at the hands of the strongest opponent. I'm sure he exists, somewhere in this big wide world. The hero and his gang are a bunch of weaklings, though, Sebek. You really are an odd fellow, Goburoku. Right back at ya, Sebek. The two of them were the only ones left in this mess of a battleground. With the wind blowing in vain, they crossed over to the next battlefield. This fight was a victory for the humans, but at the same time, it was a reminder of the threat posed by the Demon King's army. Chapter 20, Our comrade is dead, and nothing goes right for us anymore. Does anyone know whose fault it is? Chapter 20, Our comrade is dead, and nothing goes right for us anymore. Does anyone know whose fault it is? After defeating the goblin unit, the party proceeded on an endless road. Then, a tragedy occurred on the way. McLean the monk died. Mentally exhausted and worn down by the grueling road trip, he finally ran out of strength and collapsed. He was a pillar of the party as a healer, but with his death, the party's strength and morale plummeted even further. What are we going to do now? My recovery magic is not powerful enough, and more importantly, attacking and healing at the same time would be too difficult for me. Angelica. That's the first thing you have to say. McLean just died. Aren't you going to mourn the loss of our comrade? Reed. Listen, Reed-san. We've been walking for days now with no food or water, and there are no towns or villages anywhere in sight. We'll all be dead before we even reach the Demon King's castle. What are we going to do if the enemy attacks us again? Angelica. I get it already. I'm trying to think of something, Reed. Then think of it fast. You're the hero, aren't you? Angelica. Angelica the anxious sorceress and Reed the hero were arguing without being able to hide their irritation. Their argument was further aggravated by the absence of the monk McLean, who would have admonished them for it. Wait, guys. You need to calm down. I get that our situation is driving you crazy, but you have to cool off, Hydra. What do you mean, cool off? Then do something about it. How are we supposed to get out of this mess? Damn it, Angelica. Angelica, who had a violent temper, was in a state of mind where she could no longer trust anyone and was unwilling to listen to anyone's opinion. And Hydra, the female martial artist, was so frustrated with Angelica that she wanted to kill her, but she desperately tried to repress that urge. Then, she had a passing thought and voiced it out loud. What if that boy soldier Sito had been here? I wonder what he would do at a time like this. He's probably been fighting on the battlefield all his life, so maybe he would know how to act in a situation like Hydra. Or so she muttered. However, Reed then went and grabbed her, as if what she just said had gotten on his nerves. Are you going to criticize my decision too, even though you despised Sito as much as we did? Reed. Wait. I'm just saying that, Hydra. You are, aren't you? I misjudged you, Hydra. Don't you always talk about honor when preaching to people? Well, right now, you're being the opposite of honorable, Reed. What the hell are you saying? I simply wanted to do something about this crisis. And then I quickly remembered Sito, that's all. Although he's brutal, He's still a warrior who has survived in the harshest environment. So I thought he might have some wisdom to share. And then, Hydra. And then? And then what? Did you think you could come up with something by thinking of Sito while forgetting about me, the hero? Reed. Reed's eyes were bloodshot, and the expression on his face was gaunt and grim, as if he was a whole different person than before he began his journey. His mind was not at peace either. The reality that the journey to defeat the Demon King was a kind of cruel battlefield was hitting him hard. Overcoming hardships together with his teammates, defeating powerful foes. Such were the legendary tales that were passed down from generation to generation. However, reality was nothing like the legends. Reed's flaw was that he put too much faith in dreams and laws, and the repercussions of that faith were considerable. Reed, I'm begging you, calm down, Hydra. I'm perfectly calm, Hydra. He threatened Hydra by raising his voice in anger like he never did before. The force of his voice frightened her. Her body trembled, and she broke into tears. It was then that Angelica snickered and addressed Hydra coldly. Say, Hydra, if you're going to run your mouth like that, then why don't you just go look for Sito? Angelica. What did you say, Hydra? Your martial art is impressive, but you see, it's just not powerful enough to take on monsters. Do you get my point? To put it bluntly, the way you are now, you're nothing but a burden. Angelica. Hydra froze at that shocking statement. https://wp-content/uploads/2022/09/img_5321.png. All this time, she had been putting her martial art into practice for the sake of her party and the world. It was the fruit of all the training she had been doing since an early age. But now, Hydra found herself in a situation similar to what happened with Sito. And even Reed agreed with Angelica's statement. She's right. You may have great aspirations, but no real power, Reed. Hey, wait. Hold on a second. I've been putting in a lot of if. Hydra. You're not even trained in using magic, so how do you intend to fight from now on? The Demon King's executives are much stronger than this, you know. You're merely stronger than the average human. So when it comes to fighting monsters, Reed. I said wait, Hydra. Hydra had run out of patience with this situation. Her father, whom she had left in the countryside, was waiting for her return, praying that the martial art he had taught her would prove useful in bringing peace to the world. And so, she dreaded the thought of being expelled from the party after coming this far. Everything she accomplished would then be all for nothing. Betraying the expectations of both the country and her father like this would truly be an act of dishonor. Please, I'm begging you. Don't banish me from our party. I'll do anything. I'll obey your every command. Just please don't forsake me, Hydra. Hydra showed a timid attitude. At this point, she did not care about her pride anymore. She would be whatever they wanted her to be until they defeated the Demon King. And right after she had made that decision, Angelica walked up to Hydra, who was bowing her head, and with an eerie smile, she stepped on her foot and said the following. Oh, is that so? Then here's my order. Go find Sito, and bring him back to us. Angelica. Huh? But it's been several days since we drove him out. There's no way he would still be where we left him, so how could I? Hydra. Who said you could talk back? You said you would obey our every command, right? Then go find that battle maniac right now. If that brat is with us, we won't have to worry about any monsters. We'll have a much easier time fighting them. Angelica. Alright. I just have to find him, right? Hydra. That's right. Go fetch him. And once you're back, we'll happily work you into the ground. Ahahaha, Angelica. Thus, it was decided that Hydra would act separately and look for Sito. However, this was, in effect, a pseudo-banishment. Hydra left the other two and turned back the way they came. And without any food and water, she could die at any moment. Dark, cold sadness gradually filled her heart as her nerves frayed from the fear of death. Matilda. Now it's just the two of us, but it might actually feel a lot more comfortable than if we were a crowd. Angelica. You may be right, Angelica. Phew, I'm starting to cool off a little. Let's take a short break before we resume our progress. We'll also have to think about how we'll coordinate our attacks in case another battle breaks out. Reed. I agree. Perhaps the two of us will make the best party. Although, I wish McLean was still with us. Angelica. Nothing we could have done about that. He was quite the weakling himself. After all, Reed. There was a hint of insanity in what he said. He claimed to be calm, but his eyes were unfocused, and Angelica had been smirking for the past while. The Heroes Party was now basically devoid of leadership. Also, forcing Hydra to go her separate way would lead to the worst-case scenario. Chapter 21. We've grown slightly accustomed to our life in this village. Seto's chapter. Chapter 21. We've grown slightly accustomed to our life in this village. Seto's chapter. 5 days had passed since they arrived in this village. During that time, the pair thought of what they could do to help out in the village, and each of them did so in their own way to earn money, food, and other resources. Seto accompanied Yoda and Akondel and had him teach him how to hunt. In contrast with Yoda, who taught him in a dispassionate manner, Seto silently but surely learned from his job. Having gained an interest in his attitude, Yoda served him lunch at his place. There was a variety of dishes featuring meat from deer hunted in the forest, as well as vegetables and fruits grown in the village. See, can I really have all this? Seto. Yeah, dig in. A growing kid like you ought to eat lots, Yoda. The meal between men began. The living room was filled with the smell of well-smoked tobacco pipe or something similar. The sunlight streaming into the dimly lit room and the ruggedly decorated interior made Set feel a little more grown-up. It was the presence of the heroic figure in front of him that turned this feeling of exultation into a certainty. The man himself hated being called a hero, but being a child, Seto could not help but admire him. You've got a good memory, kiddo. Made it easier for me to teach ya, Yoda. Really? But you've also been a good teacher, Seto. Still, you gotta fix that bad habit of tripping many times over whenever you carry stuff. And don't drop what you carry so many times either. Seriously, how come you're so good at caring for your bow and arrows and setting traps, yet so bad at doing chores? Yoda. Don't underestimate my clumsiness. If I felt like it, I could even break one wooden dish after another like it was porcelain. Seto. What kinda talent is that? Is it something to brag about? Yoda. Ugh. I'm sorry, Seto. He sipped the soup made by simmering vegetables and meat. The vegetables were moderately tenderized and sweetened, making them easier to eat than a regular salad. The deer meat melted on the tongue, and the juice spread to the back of his mouth with each bite. Yoda smiled a bit as he watched Seto devour the meat with so much appetite. You can find much tastier meals in the royal capital, but they're way too pricey, Yoda. Are they that good? I wish I could go and try them, Seto. Sure, you should go there and eat with your companion sometime. They've got a dish called beef stew. It's incredibly good, Yoda. Beef stew. The name alone makes it sound delicious, Seto. Seto suddenly remembered the sumptuous food he had in the city of Clayshut. As of late, every meal he had did not only fill his stomach, but also his heart. Thanks to his new diet, Seto was now able to be more active than ever before, and his movements had become even more dynamic. He could feel the sensation of shifting from being a soldier to being a human being permeating into every cell of his body. Welp. Thanks for your hard work this early in the morning. I'll have to go somewhere else this afternoon. I know it's a bit early, but let's call it a day, Yoda. Ah, are you sure? Then I'll be off. Thanks, Seto. They both finished their meals, and as Seto stood up from his seat, he caught sight of something. A portrait hanging on the wall depicting a woman and a little girl. You're curious about that? Yoda. Ah, no, sorry. I didn't mean to pry into, Seto. Ha ha ha. Don't be so tense. I don't mind, although, it might be a bit too early for you to understand the full story behind it, kiddo. All I can say is that it's a grown-up business, Yoda. Is this your wife? And wouldn't this girl be your daughter, Seto? I wish they were. Or maybe not so much. It's complicated, Yoda. When he said that, he showed a much more tender smile than when the boy first met him, sat down on the sofa, lit his pipe, and started puffing tobacco smoke. Seto thanked him and left his house. Noon hour had come, and the village was now in the mood for a break. Those who had been working in the fields or tending the orchard were now gathering in groups, chatting and eating lunch. Cattlemen and shepherds have stopped their work, and the sound of hammering iron could no longer be heard from the blacksmith's shop. This time of peace and quiet passed along with the wind. A mountain range was visible in the distance behind the village. It seemed to watch over the village, towering over it as if piercing the verdant sky. I wonder how many more places like this there are in the world? I'd like to visit them. As Seto was on his way home, lost in thought, he met Keelan, who was on patrol in the village. This was a remote workplace in a remote village, but she was doing her job with the discipline of a soldier. "Oh, Sito. What's up? Are you already done with work?" Keelim. "Yeah, Yodo had some business to attend to this afternoon. He also treated me to lunch today." Sito. "Seriously? You two have become friends already?" "Whenever I try to talk to him, all I get is a curt greeting." Keelim. "Aren't all heroes like that?" "I like his maturity, though." Sito. Sito smiled as he shrugged his shoulders. Keelim did not seem convinced, and had a sullen look on her face. "I've finally come across a war hero, so I wish I could be friends with him too. But he's been giving me the cold shoulder from day one." Keelim. "What did you try to talk about with Yodo?" Sito. "I asked him if we could drink together." Keelim. "He must have thought that it sounded like a pain." Sito. "Apparently, after the first attempt, she boldly invited him out several more times, but he turned her down at every turn. He's the kind of guy who likes peace and quiet, after all. I don't think he and you would have good chemistry." Sito. "MRRG, I see. Maybe this is also why that man disappeared on me." Keelim. Keelim was slightly depressed. When he heard her mutter that, Sito got a little curious and decided to ask. "When you say that man, are you talking about someone important to you?" Sito. "Yeah, there was a man I fell in love with, but he ran out on me. And after everything I did for him, goddamn it." Keelim. "Sounds like you had it rough." Sito. "You can say that again." "His food, his booze, his gambling, and the list goes on. I had to work my ass off to pay for everything." Keelim. Sito. "But, you see, I know that the profession of mercenary gives its fair share of anxiety due to how unstable it can be, so I thought I shouldn't nag him too much about it. Besides, he's basically hopeless without me. He takes his job seriously, but he's just no good at everything else. He's crude and sloppy in all the wrong areas. But he's got the kind of coolness that even I, who was serving as a corps commander at the time, fell in love with." Keelim. Keelim smiled absent-mindedly as she recalled the past, and Sito smiled awkwardly at that. "So not only did you burn out your own paycheck, but you also borrowed other people's money?" Sito. "Oh? You could tell? I got one hell of a scolding when they found out. It was then that I lost touch with him. I don't even know where he is right now. But I'm sure he must be in trouble at the moment, now that I'm not with him." Keelim. "I may not know much about the world, but even I think that guy must be the worst." Sito. The moment Sito muttered that, Keelim's face turned red, and she yelled at him. "Hey, don't badmouth my soulmate. He may not look like it, but Holmes is a great man." Keelim. "Holmes? Sito. "Wait. Do you know him?" Keelim. No, sorry. I don't." Sito. Sito ran away at once. Behind him, Keelim was shouting something while waving her hands in the air, but his best option for now was to retreat. "That old-timer. What the heck did he do?" Sito. He muttered to himself as he made his way to his house, where Satis had yet to return. Chapter 22. We've grown slightly accustomed to our life in this village. Satis. Chapter 22. We've grown slightly accustomed to our life in this village. Satis. Satis was working at the village mayor's house on this day. Right next to her office was a library filled with old books, and in her office, Scarlett was organizing and processing letters, old notes and documents. Satis brought other books she designated from the stacks, and processed them in the same way if necessary. The documents were numerous, and quite heavy when they were bulky, to the point that the attendants alone did not provide enough manpower. "You're a big help, Satis-san. The literacy rate of the villagers here is high, but when it comes to this kind of work, it's plain to see that they all hate it. From what I heard, there's Yoda-san who used to do paperwork, but he said he was forever done with paperwork and won't help me at all." Scarlett. Foo. "Well, I suppose it's not a very desirable job. But are you sure about this? Entrusting me with such a task, even though I'm an outsider?" Satis. "It's all right. I was just in need of assistance. Besides, none of these contain confidential information of any sort. We're just a village from the back country. From a bystander's point of view, this is just a boring job where you stare at some texts all day long." Scarlett. She giggled and looked through a stack of letters she received. For an elderly, Staring at countless sheets of paper was indeed a tiresome task. Sitting all the time made her muscles sore. It was by no means a healthy job. The position of village mayor also comes with its own hardships. I see. Here. These are the letters and documents I've sorted. And these are the documents you asked me to find. Satis. Thank you. You're so helpful. I see you've gotten quite used to this job, Scarlet. I suppose, because I've already done this sort of work before. Satis. Her years of experience as a top executive came in handy here. Satis was the one mostly in charge of this sort of paperwork, and she remembered how she was always working so vigorously to ensure that the monsters could perfectly exert their full power. She never thought she would be able to make use of that experience in this village, but it looked like she would earn a generous wage for it. When all the work was done, it was just before noon. Scarlet invited her for lunch. She had prepared a light soup and a pie made with fruits from the village, as well as delicious tea. They sat on both sides of the dining table and savored the flavors. What in there? It tastes so sweet and delicious, Satis. When she took a bite of the pie, the sweet and sour taste of the fruits spread with the sound of the dough cracking open. The more she chewed, the deeper the flavor became, and she felt as if it could melt in her mouth at any moment. Foo. Tasty, isn't it? This pie is one of the specialities of this village, Scarlet. Yes, it's absolutely delicious. It may sound indelicate of me to ask, but could you part with some of it for me to take home, please? Satis. To share it with the boy, is it? Of course. I'll tell my attendants to give it to you after work. But I must say, the two of you are really close. It's as if you're lovers, Scarlet. Love. Satis. Did I guess right? As you grow older, you tend to become a lot more perceptive about these things, after all. Foo. Scarlet. Satis blushed and ate her pie as if to savor it, while Scarlet sipped her tea and smiled at her. The former admitted to being interested in the boy, but it was embarrassing to hear a third party saying it so bluntly. Although there are many forms of love in this world. It's great to see you two so happy with each other. It puts such a smile on my face, Scarlet. No, we're not like Satis. There's no need to hide it. I experienced that myself when I was young. Though I know that from an onlooker's point of view, it must seem like a strange romance, Scarlet. Scarlet-san, have you ever been in love, and felt like your heart was squeaking? Satis. Why yes, I've felt that many times, Scarlet. She put her teacup on her saucer and stared at the flickering candlelight, feeling nostalgic. My heart would ache whenever my special someone was about to do something reckless, and it would flutter whenever he showed me his cheerful smile. It was a lot of hardships, but I still loved him very much. It's been several years since he passed away, but my love for him still shines as always. That's how I feel, Scarlet. It was a sad, yet romantic story. Satis also felt a warmth in her heart as she thought of Sito. She wondered about the life that they would lead together in the future. What expression he would make, and what path he would take from this point on. And she felt the desire to stand by his side and watch over him. Satis stared at the candlelight as she drank her tea as well. The fire reflected in her glasses was warm and dancing, as if to represent her heart at the moment. Seeing Satis making a gentle expression, Scarlet suggested something to her, as if she had caught on to her feelings. I have an idea, Satis-san. Why don't you both take the day off tomorrow and go for a picnic? The view from the hills on the outskirts of the village is spectacular, and of course, I'll make you a new pie. Scarlet. Are you sure? Satis. Yes, I am. I'll let Ryoda-san know as well. I'm sure he'll understand. Sito-kun is all he ever talks about lately, you know. He's all the kiddo this, the kiddo that, and so on. I haven't seen him so full of energy in such a long time. Scarlet. Thank you very much for everything you do for us. If it's not too much to ask, could you please teach me the recipes for your dishes? It wouldn't be right to have you cook for us all the time, Satis. Oh my, really? Foo. No problem. In that case, we had better finish our work quickly, Scarlet. After saying that, she got up and headed for her office. Satis followed her and got back to work as well. In the afternoon, their work was more productive than ever. Satis' heart was full of exultation and curiosity. Sito. I guess a meat dish would be to his liking. I wonder what else he would like to eat. With that in mind, she vigorously proceeded with her work. Time flew by in the blink of an eye, and she was done with the amount fixed for today. Now, I can teach you. Come to the kitchen, Scarlet. Yes, I will be in your care, Satis. The two women smiled as they went to the kitchen, where the elderly woman and her servants taught Satis how to cook all sorts of dishes. Chapter 23, A Time of Relaxation at Home After Work. Or so it was, but... Chapter 23, A Time of Relaxation at Home After Work. Or so it was, but... On that evening, Satis came home with the recipes she had learned, and the fruit pie she was offered. Sito, who was already home, opened the door to welcome her back. At the same time, he caught the aroma of the fruit pie, and his eyes sparkled. For him, the dish known as fruit pie was an unknown food. Having promised to serve it for dinner, Satis immediately set about preparing it. She told him to wait in his room, but instead, Sito sat on a chair at the table and waited patiently. There, dinner is ready now. Let's eat, Satis. Thanks for the food, Sito. For dinner, they had soup with lots of beans and chicken meat that Sito had received a while back as a reward for his work in the fields, and a fruit pie. After another day of hard labor, the pair savored the modest yet mouth-watering food and pie with relish. Satis smiled as she watched Sito eat everything with such delight. Just the two of them, and a meal by the candlelight. It was already dark outside, and the beautiful stars were now visible. Looks like tomorrow will be sunny as well. With that in mind, Sito took a bite of the pie they had received. This is delicious, Sito. Isn't it? The fruit pie here might be, frankly speaking, much better than any other you could find in any restaurant, Satis. Yeah, it makes me wanna eat more of it, Sito. Foo. Let's save the rest of it for tomorrow. You see, I was thinking we could go on a picnic together, Satis. A picnic? That thing you were talking about when he came to this village? Sito. Yes. We'll go to the hills outside the village. This was a suggestion from Scarlet-san. I think she's already told Ryoda-san about it. What do you think? Satis. An invitation from Satis, or rather, a thoughtful offer made by Scarlet, the mayor of this village. Naturally, Sito had no reason to refuse. In fact, they had been working so hard since they arrived here that they had not been able to do something like this. Nay, he regretted that he could not show this sort of consideration towards Satis. Okay, let's do that, Sito. Foo. I'm glad you're up for it. It seems like it won't take too long to get to the hill, so you can sleep in a little. Though I have to say, you always wake up way too early, Satis. Well, that's because I have to pay attention to the time when accompanying Ryoda on his work. But yeah, I'll spend a bit more time in bed, Sito. Very well. Now, I'll wash the dishes. Can you make us some tea? Without dropping or spilling anything, that is, Satis. Leave it to me. Don't think I'm the same as I was the first day we got here. You and Ryoda trained me well, after all, Sito. For some reason, I feel extremely worried, Satis. Having finished her chores, Satis sat on the sofa with Sito, and the two enjoyed a cup of tea. She was using a tea set, which was one of the daily necessities Satis had stored away with her spatial magic. Sito himself liked it so much they were both using it. Phew. Delicious, Satis. Yeah. Compared to the days when I drank nothing but water, this feels pretty luxurious, Sito. There's no harm in a bit of luxury, and tomorrow is going to be even more luxurious, you know? Satis. You're right. I can't wait for tomorrow, Sito. This time they spent sitting close to each other and drinking together was an irreplaceable moment. This was what it felt like to live in a village, and it was a time of peace. Those were not days of bloody battles, but days of activities between people and nature. It was not about the harshness of life, but the preciousness of life. They recounted the events of this morning and at work while enjoying the tea and each other's warmth. Time passed as they talked, then it was time for them to call it a day. Indeed, it was bath time. It may sound quite strange that such a small house would have a bathtub, but that is because Satis could not forget how pleasant the public baths of Clayshat felt. So 2 days after arriving in this village, she apparently decided to talk to Scarlet about it. She thought she would object, but instead, she replied that sounds interesting and easily agreed to it. This sort of house remodeling had been pretty common since the founding of the village. In some of the houses that had been demolished, it was later discovered that several rooms leading to the basement had been built. Therefore, Scarlet would not object to it as long as Satis told her in advance what sort of thing she was going to build. and if she and Sito could take responsibility for it and manage it properly. As expected of the woman acting as the mayor of a village of eccentrics, Benjamin Village was said to be housing numerous quirky characters who would have given headaches to any other villages. And she was the one leading them all as a villager. She was worthy of respect. Okay, I think the baths should be ready right about now. Sito, please go first. Satis, sure. That'll help me relieve myself, Sito. After saying that, he went into the remodeled bathroom in the back. Now, how should I go about giving a good wash to a bad boy who only takes quick baths like Sito-chan? Satis. At that time, Satis also made her move. Perhaps it was because he was not accustomed to it at all, but he never washed his body thoroughly, and spent less time in this bath than he did in the public baths. Since she had to comprehensively teach him how it was done, she secretly followed him as he took off his clothes and went into the bathroom. By the time she entered the dressing room, Sito had already washed his body lightly. Phew. This feels good. It does, but still, this bathroom really is amazing, Sito. Sito looked around the bathroom as he poured hot water over his body. This was the perfect bathroom, created by using magic spells of various elemental attributes, namely water, fire, and earth. Regardless of whether it was winter or summer outside, this bathroom could retain heat perfectly, and the hot water gave numerous benefits to relieve the body's exhaustion. I remember Satis boasting that even the public baths wouldn't be able to build something like this. And while he was taking a bath, Sito's clothes were again carefully washed and dried clean by Satis' magical invention. I wonder if everything else would be this great if Satis upgraded them all. Well, I heard that mages had tons of secret information to hide, though. And these accommodations are as useful as can be, so whatever. Now, onto the bath, Sito. The moment Sito was about to enter the bathtub, the door behind him opened. Upon seeing who it was, Sito's eyes widened, and his body stiffened. He, who was in such a relaxed mood, suddenly turned awfully tense, like during battles. Tilda, having your own bathroom is truly great, am I right? Satis. Why, huh? Satis? Why are you here? Sito. Satis, who was stark naked with only a towel to cover herself, came in like it was natural. Upon seeing her like this, Sito lost all his composure. His face was flushed, and he got confused. Why, you ask? Isn't it obvious? You didn't clean yourself properly, did you? Come on now, sit down. I'm going to teach you how to wash yourself perfectly. Satis. The boy could see the outline of her legs and hips now and then. Her glossy skin looked even better with water droplets from the steam on it. And above all, her voluptuous and luscious breasts, which contrasted with her slender figure, seemed to assert their presence in front of Sito, even though they were wrapped in a towel. Sito, who felt more shaken and nervous than ever in the hot, closed bathroom, did as he was told and sat back down. This would be his first time bathing with a woman, but he felt as if his heart was about to burst out of his chest and turn into a star. Now, I'll start with your back, okay? Satis. Satis was blushing in embarrassment too, albeit only slightly. The heat of the bathroom probably had something to do with it, but it appeared that even Satis was nervous about doing this for the target of her affection. I think today might be the day I die. The situation was so tense that Sito unintentionally sensed his own death. Chapter 24. My resistance to it was way too low, but it was still something I was happy about. Chapter 24. My resistance to it was way too low, but it was still something I was happy about. Sito was currently getting his hair washed by Satis, who was standing on her knees. One would think that just rinsing it with hot water would be enough to remove all the dirt, but Satis used her hands to clean his scalp. Please hold still. I can't wash you properly if you don't. Satis. Wait, Sito. He was well aware that having her wash his hair was pleasant, but there was one more thing he also felt. It was only at times, but it hit his back with every movement she made. He did not dare say what it was. If Sito himself became conscious of it, his sense of reason would completely crumble. It felt soft and warm. The springy sensation spread throughout Sito's entire back, making it all too easy for him to imagine them despite facing forward and not seeing them. Look, we're done now, aren't we? Sito. No, we're not. We haven't washed your body yet, remember? Satis. Sito. Bathing was a time of relaxation and bliss. Yet here, It had instantly turned into a battle of nerves and reason. But he could not possibly disregard Satis' good intentions. It was due to this situation that Sito was focusing on emptying his mind of all impure thoughts. "I'll wash your back, so you wash the front, okay?" Satis, "As you see fit, Sito." "Where did you learn to speak like that, Satis?" "Shiki soku's kyu soku's shiki. Shiki fu I kyu fu I shiki, Sito, T/N. He's reciting the Heart Sutra." "Wei I." "Stop this. You're freaking me out, Satis." Sito was uttering what seemed to be a strange incantation. Meanwhile, Satis washed every inch of his back. He was covered in all sorts of scars. Not only swords wounds, but also traces of torture. Satis carefully washed his back that was so painful to look at. It was too cruel a burden to bear for such a small back. "Okay. Now go ahead and wash the front, Satis." "Alright, Sito." "Well, I should wash myself as well, Satis." She then sat down next to Sito, and started pouring hot water over herself. The boy carefully washed the front part of his body with his eyes thinly opened and his vision narrowed, as if he were meditating. After a thorough washing, he went into the bath with his back to Satis. This was the best choice for him, because otherwise, he would end up seeing her. "It feels so good." "Sito, how's the water temperature?" Satis, "Yeah, it's good. It feels as warm as the water of the public baths." Sito, "Your tongue slipped just now." "Then, I'm going in too, Satis." "Eh?" Sito. Sito was happy to hear it, yet at the same time, he felt in danger. Her body was, to put it bluntly, too much for someone like him who was not used to women. Even in her usual attire, Satis looked absolutely sensual, but here, that was even more the case. For Sito, even this sort of development, which anyone would have envied, was basically an ordeal he had to overcome. "Bathing is such a pleasure. I would even say that it washes so many of my worries away. I want to take one every day." Satis, "I agree. I'd like to take a long soak in it if I could, Sito." "But aren't you already in it?" Satis, right. I am, Sito." He felt as if he was going to go crazy because of his own weakness of mind and guilt towards Satis, whom he could not help but stare at no matter how much he resisted the desire. In the midst of all this, Satis was strangely unsuspecting and handled this situation with maturity. Even though she felt quite embarrassed and nervous because she was conscious of Sito, she calmly enjoyed the bath without showing it. Her cheeks did look flushed, but she could use the bath as an excuse for it. "I can tell that he's staring at me a lot, but maybe I'm being a bit too assertive." Satis, "Crap. Calm down. Wait. How do I calm myself down again?" Sito. There was no conversation between the two, and a time of silence and warmth reigned. If he stayed in the water any longer, Sito, who was losing his composure, would get dizzy first, which would affect their plans for tomorrow. Needless to say, this had to be avoided. Satis addressed him as if to warn him about it. "Sito." Satis, "Yes?" Sito, "Why did you raise your voice like that?" "I think you should start leaving the bathtub." Satis, Oh, right. I'm stepping out." It was a nice bath, Sito. Make sure you wipe yourself dry, okay?" Satis, "I know, Sito." He got out of the bathroom in a hurry, wiped himself as he was told, and put on freshly cleaned clothes. Satis was apparently also having her combat suit washed using a spell made exclusively for that, and there was a piece of clothing for her to wear after her bath as well. It was the tube top he had seen her wear at the Inn of Clay Shut. The moment Sito saw it, his brain went blank as if he had been sparked. "Take this." Sito. As he was about to reach out for it with his hand, the boy closed it into a fist and punched himself in the face. He felt the pain and stimulation bring him back to his senses. Ha! That was too close, Sito. Sito. What was that shout and noise? Satis. Satis expressed her worry from inside the bathroom. It's nothing. Don't worry. You're safe now, Sito. Safe? From what? Satis. You don't need to know. Only that I stopped a tragedy before it could happen. But it's okay now. Be at ease, Sito. Is that so? Satis. Sito walked unsteadily to the living room and sat down on the sofa. He slumped into the comfy sofa with just the right amount of exhaustion. Feeling the coolness unique to the moment right after the bath, he leaned back on the sofa and looked up at the ceiling. The fatigue he felt as if he had just completed a job gradually disappeared, and a sense of relief lulled him to sleep. I think I'll go to bed now, Sito. Right after he got up, Satis entered the living room. It was both the best and the worst timing. Her body looked flushed, and she was in that outfit from earlier. He was about to go to bed, but now the sight of her would be burned into his mind, keeping him awake. "Oh, are you already going to rest?" Satis. "Yeah, I am. Because I wanna be in perfect condition for our picnic tomorrow." Sito. "Shall we sleep together again?" Satis. "Huh? Gg night." Sito. Feeling his body temperature rise up in one go, Sito rushed to his room upstairs. Oh dear. Was that too stimulating for him? I wish he would get used to it, though. Well, I suppose I shouldn't demand too much of a child. Satis. Satis also went upstairs and was going to enter her room. As she was about to open the door, she suddenly felt a gaze. Sito peeked out from his room and looked in her direction. Unlike how he usually behaved, he addressed her in a bashful manner. Thank you, Sito." "Eh?" Satis. "I mean, for taking a bath with me." Sito. After murmuring that, he slowly closed the door. He just squeezed out his own words of gratitude. It sounded pretty clumsy and inarticulate, but for Satis, it was enough. In fact, she thought for a moment that she might have inconvenienced him instead, but when she heard his words of thanks, Satis smiled. "For taking a bath with me," he says. "Foo-fa-foo. What strange gratitude." Satis. Satis also went into her room and laid in bed in preparation for tomorrow. Sito could sleep in, but Satis could not. She was going to be busy preparing lunch and other things. She wanted to make this an unforgettable memory for both of them by putting all of her skills into cooking. "Good night, Sito." And sweet dreams, Satis. Chapter 25. We went on a picnic, then I fell down a hole. Chapter 25. We went on a picnic, then I fell down a hole. The next morning, after greeting Scarlet and the other villagers, they called to the hills on the outskirts of the village. Needless to say, the weather was fine. A gentle breeze caressed their hair and cheeks, swaying the grass and trees. "Now that I'm taking another look at it, we've got an amazing view from here, Sito. We can see the entire landscape from here. It truly is a miracle of Mother Nature." Satis. Towering mountains were surrounded by heavy clouds that shrouded the peaks, making the whiteness of the snow on them stand out even more. The sky was as blue as ever, and the wind, also known as the breath of the earth, was blowing over the vast meadows. Condor-like birds were flying far above, and small herds of herbivores were wandering around the meadows in the distance. The breath of life was visible in every visible landscape. Sito's heart was moved not by life in the form of humans, but by life in the great outdoors. This majestic spectacle made him realize how small he was. As he unconsciously paused and felt entranced by the view, Satis gently held his hand next to him. "Come on, we're almost at the top of the hill. Let's take a break there." Satis. Right, Sito." Hand in hand, the two walked to their destination. As they walked up the hill, the view they had was much different than before. From a slightly higher point, they could see the distant mountain range and catch a glimpse of the other side of it. While gently watching over Sito, whose eyes were sparkling at the natural scenery, Satis started unfolding the sheet. A hill on the outskirts of the village. Truly the perfect place for a picnic. The two of them sat down on the sheet, and had a cup of tea. The sunlight and wind gently enveloping them, and the scent of trees and grass filled the air. This quiet and magnificent place put Sito in a mood that he could never experience in the forest he and Ryodo entered. It was as if he and Satis were the only two people in the world right now. "This place is so relaxing, and it makes me feel nostalgic for some reason, Sito." "Eh, Sito, could it be that you were born here?" Satis. "No, number. I can't really put it into words. It's more like Sito. This is just a guess, but it could be that your ancestors have been here before." Satis. "In this place?" Sito. "Yes. Perhaps the sight of all this nature is recorded in the genetic memory that was engraved in all living beings long ago." Satis. "Sounds complicated, Sito." "Foo-fa-foo. I guess it does. Even I don't understand it. You come to a place you've never been or seen before, yet it gives you a feeling of nostalgia and déjà vu. You could call it the mystery of life." Satis. They huddled together and enjoyed a cup of tea, while gazing at the endless landscape, savoring this emotion that he could not quite experience in his everyday life. Sito took a deep breath and felt the earth and the sky. "When I see such a wide and beautiful scenery, ha ha ha, It kinda makes me feel tiny in comparison, Sito. I think so too. It truly looks wonderful. I've seen all sorts of treasures made of gold and silver, but even those seem insignificant compared to this nature, Satis. I've also never had the liberty to enjoy the landscape before. I'm glad I got to see one like this, and of course, I'm happy it was with you, Sito. Sito smiled at her, and Satis smiled back, with her cheeks slightly flushed. This sort of natural space cleansed the soul. For those who were tired of fighting, and those who lived in despair, it spoke for itself with its own majesty. It had remained unchanged for thousands of years, showing us what life was about. Ngh, Sito. My, you look drowsy. Did you have trouble sleeping last night? Satis. Nah, I'm just feeling relaxed, Sito. Foo. In that case, would you like to take a nap? I'll wake you up at noon, Satis. Thanks, Sito. Satis gave him a lap pillow. In this refreshing landscape, her body warmth was transmitted to his head. She gently stroked his hair with her soft hand, and he was able to fall asleep immediately. All he was doing was sleeping, yet there was no time more blissful than this. As his consciousness faded, Sito felt that this may be the happiness he was looking for. Time passed, and Satis woke him up right before noon. As Sito sat up and rubbed his eyes, Satis brought out a basket and started taking out food from it. Ooh, so this is our lunch for today? Sito. Yes, we have chicken meat, deer meat, and rabbit meat. I've brought meat on the bone and sandwiches so they're easier to eat. Satis. Meat everywhere. This is the best lunch ever. Thanks for the food, then, Sito. Thus, the two enjoyed their lunch together. Sito stuffed his mouth with the meat he loved so much, while Satis wiped the bits of food and sauce around his mouth with a napkin. The truth is, she could not have prepared this much meat. But first thing in the morning, Yoda dropped by to share the meat with them. Don't tell the kid, Yoda. After saying that, he left in a hurry. The moment Satis learned that Sito was so appreciated by the village since they first arrived, she was absolutely delighted. Sito was more lively than ever as he ate and drank water so ravenously, although Sito seemed to display more energy when he was eating than when he was fighting. Easy now. Please take your time to eat. The food isn't going anywhere, Satis. But, chew, it's just so yummy. Gulp, Sito. I told you, don't talk with your mouth full. See, you're getting your mouth dirty again, Satis. I can wipe it myself, Sito. While having those little exchanges, the two of them enjoyed both their lunch and the scenery. As time passed peacefully, Sito finished his meal, got up, and walked forward. Sito. Satis. I'm just gonna walk around a bit, Sito. I'm coming with you, then. Just give me a minute, Satis. Okay, I'll wait for you to. Bua? Sito. Bua? What sort of shout is that? Wait, Sito? Satis. When she turned to look at Sito, who had let out a strange cry, he had disappeared. Even if he wanted to hide, there was not even a single hiding spot on this hill. She looked around, but she could not see him anywhere. Instead, she heard his voice. I'm here, Sito. Sito. Where are you? Satis. Right where I was standing. A huge hole opened and I fell in it, Sito. A gaping hole had spread out right where he had told her, and he was waving at her from the dim darkness below. Are you hurt? Satis. Don't worry, I'm fine. But more importantly, there's something amazing down here. You gotta come down quick, Sito. Sito had apparently found something inside that hole. It was an unknown space of which not even Satis suspected the existence. Chapter 26, Beyond the Totems Standing Hidden Inside the Cave. Chapter 26, Beyond the Totems Standing Hidden Inside the Cave. Satis also swooped down to take a look inside the hole. The light shining through it allowed them to see the interior. They could faintly make out the murals through the dusty air, and there were totem poles covered in dust and cobwebs lined up along the back of the tunnel. To think we'd find a space like this inside the hill. This is incredible, right, Satis? Sito. Why yes, it is indeed, Satis. Inside this obscure room, Satis had a slightly gloomy look on her face. It reminded her of that one time she was tortured and lynched. Are you okay? Sito. Yes. Don't worry. What is this place, anyway? Satis. While trying not to worry Sito, she turned her attention to the unfamiliarity of this place. During the times she worked in the village mayor's house, Satis had heard about the natives who lived in this land. They were said to live far away from the village, in harmony with nature, and were famous for their totem poles. However, she had never heard of historic ruins being located inside the hills. It appears this extends all the way to the back, Satis. Judging by all the dust and cobwebs, looks like this underground tunnel has been abandoned for ages. Sito. A picnic followed by an exploration. In response to Sito's curiosity, Satis used a light-based spell to produce a light to use as a torch. The air grew colder and dustier as they went deeper, and above all, the numerous totem poles illuminated by the light created an eerie atmosphere in the middle of this darkness. These totem poles were representing animals such as white-shouldered eagles, otters, bears, and coyotes, but most of them were faceless. Either that, or they had unusual faces. Those weird things are still standing, Sito. You mean the totem poles? But these ones are fairly old. They are basically the prototypes of the totem poles of our time, so to speak. They're not supposed to be standing in a tunnel like this, Satis. Totem poles? I've heard about them. If I remember right, they're statues sculpted by the natives of certain lands to worship their ancestors and spirits, right? But these ones, Sito. Yes. The least we can say is that they're nothing like the ones from our era. The word totem originally meant dimension and causality. If these statues were built with that in mind, then what could be the meaning of carving those strange animals in them? Even the wood feels more rock-like than plant-like, Satis. The mystery deepened as they went deeper inside the cave. They were plunged into the illusion of being stared at by countless faceless totems. A world of death where there was no sign of life. These ruins felt so quiet, dark, and cold that the pair could not help but get that impression. I think I see something further ahead, Satis. Is that an altar? Sito. They had been walking on a straight path up to this point, then they finally arrived at a spacious room that seemed to be the end of the tunnel. What they found there were mural paintings of trees, animals, and humans in traditional costumes, as well as faceless totems, and a spot used to worship something. I see. Could it be? Satis. You know something, Satis? Sito. Yes. This is a tale of monsters, though. All monsters are divided into several factions, or rather, they were. Centuries ago, many of those factions united under the Demon King's banner to form the Demon King's army. However, there was one faction that didn't come under the Demon King's wing. Satis. Monsters who didn't come under his command? Are they related to the religion of the natives who built all this? Sito. Indeed. I'm not sure if referring to them as monsters is appropriate, but to humans at least, I suppose they're the same as any other monsters. They were called Wendigos, and they were known as a variety of spirits who embodied the will of nature. Satis. Wendigos. So this means that this place was built to worship those beings? Sito. Most likely. They were considered to have existed since the dawn of time. I see now. So it was here, the land of the Wendigos, Satis. Illuminated by the light, Satis' eyes sparkled with wonder as she contemplated a part of history. She, too, had developed an intellectual curiosity, and like Sito, she was interested in seeing the unknown. So these are the ruins of their civilizations, huh? You know, we might actually meet the Wendigos and the natives in the future. Sito. Meet them, you say, Satis. If we suppose that those totems of dimension and causality beckoned us here, then they might also lead us to that kind of future. Sito. It sounds romantic when you say it like that, but I'm afraid it might also be a future with conflicts, Satis. If it ever comes to that, I'll deal with it somehow, Sito. Satis unconsciously burst into laughter at Sito's confident reply. She smiled not because she found him funny, but out of relief. What are you saying now? I'll have you know that I'm plenty strong too when I get serious. Please rely on me more often. I'm not the same woman I was back when we met in that forest anymore, Satis. You're right. Okay, I'll be counting on you from now on too, Sito. Their smiles illuminated the dark cave. Sito thought that it was time for them to leave, but Satis' burning curiosity motivated her to stay. So hey, can we go home now? Sito. I can't. I could never leave such a wonderful historical legacy unattended, Satis. We could also check it all another day. No, Sito. Wait for me. I'll just need a few minutes, Satis. With a twinkle in her glasses, she began to examine the murals, the altar, and even the totem poles that creeped her out so much. Thinking that it was probably the first time he had ever seen her so absorbed in something, Sito watched over her with a fresh feeling. This might be the first time I see Satis so full of energy about her own hobbies. Usually, she gets like that when she does all sorts of things for Sito. He stopped himself from remembering. His memory of all of Satis' alluring gestures up to this point were ruminating in his mind. Hobbies? What hobbies do I have, actually? Come to think of it, I've never thought about it before. As he pondered that question, something entered Sito's field of vision. He walked toward the altar. Then he found something huge painted on the wall behind it. It was a mass of tentacles that looked like a man in a yellow cloak. The more he stared at it, the more he felt drawn into the painting. It was as if it was calling out to Sito from the shadows hiding its face. Sito. Sito, Satis. Whoa, what is it? Sito. I've been calling out to you for a while, but you weren't responding at all. Satis. Sorry. I was looking at that thing. Sito. Satis looked in the direction he was pointing. However, she simply squinted her eyes while maintaining a dubious look on her face. But there's nothing there, Satis. Sito. He took another look in that direction, but it was Satis stated. There was not a single trace of that mural painting he had seen. Sorry, maybe it was just my imagination, Sito. Well, it's dark down here. After all, I guess people are more likely to hallucinate when the light is so lacking. Now, we're done here, so let's head back up. Let's rest under the sun one more time, okay? Satis. Good idea. Yeah, let's do that. I'd like it if you could give me another lap pillow, maybe. Sito. Foo. Of course, Satis. After that, the pair returned to the surface. They reported their discovery to the mayor as soon as they returned to the village. Chapter 27. The Disturbing Rumors and the Village's Shaman. Chapter 27. The Disturbing Rumors and the Village's Shaman. The day after the picnic, in the forest outside the village. It was there that Sito told Yodo about the discovery of the previous day. Yeah, the mayor told me about it. That was probably the place where they used to worship the Wendigos, Yodo. Is that so? Sito. Around noon, Sito asked Yodo about the details as they returned to the village while carrying their catch. He told him how an indigenous tribe known as the Yellers, who once lived in this land, established a number of ceremonial sites there. Many of them had been lost over the course of their long history, but that one had remained almost completely intact. There was no doubt that that place was of particular importance to the Yeller tribe. They don't fear death. In fact, they believe that life itself is something we're all borrowing. Yodo. Borrowing? From whom? Sito. The one they believe to be the absolute being. The Wendigo of death. Ahas Patel. Yodo. Ahas Patel. So the one they believe to be the absolute being is death itself? Sito. That's right. Their teachings say that every life in the world is a temporary loan from the Wendigo of death that must eventually be returned to him. You can learn more about this by visiting a man in the village named Gender. He's an eccentric fellow who lives on the west side of the village. If I'm not wrong, he's a shaman of Yeller descent. He might know something. Yodo. Got it. I'll go see him this evening. Sito. He's even more of an eccentric than I am. So watch out, Kay? Yodo. Ha. Sounds rough. Sito. A gentle breeze blew through the sunlight filtering through the trees. The chirping of birds and the faint sound of small animals moving about could be heard from between the sky and the trees. The two men walked through the silent order of the forest, laughing. A peaceful sanctuary never recorded in the memories of wars between humans and demons. And it was in this sanctuary that men entered and hunted. Humans had long made their way into the unique food chain created by the forest. Nowadays, a single mistake could destroy that food chain and order. Some animals become extinct due to poaching and overhunting. But in order to survive, humans had to feed on living beings. The Yeller tribe of old paid their respect to that food chain. They carved their testimonies of that on totem poles. It was their way of saying that humans lived in harmony with nature. Too, by introducing legends and mythological elements now and then, they created a more natural and symbolic link between the past and the future. But Satis stated that the totem poles we saw were different from many others. I'll have to inquire about those faceless totem poles, Sito. The two were almost out of the forest and close to the village when Yoda mentioned something. It seemed that the news about it had reached the village yesterday when Sito and Satis had gone on their picnic. By the way, did you know, Sito? Yoda. Know what? Sito. Something I learned yesterday. Apparently, the heroes party that was dispatched to defeat the Demon King has gone missing. Yoda. Wow. Sito. Despite the awkwardness he felt as someone who used to be associated with them, the news made the boy gasp unconsciously. Not even in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that those people who were so passionate about bringing peace would go missing. Where were they last seen? Sito. They were last seen in a town close to a lake. Apparently, no one has heard from them ever since. Why are you so curious about it? Yoda. No reason, Sito. It was on the shore of the lake beyond that town that Sito's banishment was declared. If no one had heard from them since then, the cause was most likely related to the monsters. It wouldn't be surprising to assume that they were done in by monsters. But, the thing is, there's another strange rumor going around. Yoda. A strange rumor? Sito. The closures of national borders have forced traveling peddlers to return to the cities. And in the midst of all this, there's been an increasing number of cases where peddlers and caravans are attacked. Yoda. You don't think that the missing heroes party is behind those attacks, do you? Are you sure it wasn't the work of some kind of bandits? Sito. Could be. It'd be a national disgrace for the heroes party to be playing bandits. Yoda. Yoda snickered a bit, but Sito was taking in this story with mixed feelings. Still, nothing could be done about it at this point. No matter how worried he was about the future of the country, there was nothing Sito could do about it anymore. He had already made up his mind that the happiness he had now was the thing he should protect. Alright, we'll go back to the forest after lunch. Yoda. Sure. I wanna try and catch a boar, Sito. A boar? Huh. Then we'd better lay a trap for it, Yoda. After returning to the village and eating lunch, they went back to the forest. Then after completing all of their work, they returned to the village. By the time they arrived, the village was basking in a madder red light, and the mountain range in the background was also dyed in that color. Evening had come to the forest, and the animals were preparing to welcome the night. Welp, that's enough for today. Gender's house is on the west side of the village. You know which one it is, right? It's a very distinctive house. You'll recognize it right away. Yoda. Got it, thanks. I'll be on my way, Sito. He did not want to worry Satis, who was probably at home cooking dinner. Still, he had to know no matter what. Sito went to the house of the shaman named Gender. He had a clear memory of his house from the first time he was shown around the village, as it was full of impressive decorations and statues. Excuse me, Sito. Right after knocking once, the door flew open. An old man adorned with feathers and animal bones came out. That man was Gender. Silence fell between him and Sito, who jumped back with much vigor. He stared at Sito, then he finally opened his mouth, which he was keeping closed in a straight line, and spoke. I knew you would come, boy of destruction and storm. Gender. Huh? How do you, Sito? Come on in. I'll make you some tea, Gender. Gender walked into the room at a slow pace. So this man is Gender, Sito. Tilting his head, Sito did as he was told and entered. Chapter 28, The Wendigo of Death. Ahaz Patel. Chapter 28, The Wendigo of Death. Ahaz Patel. Sito entered Gender's house and sat down on the chair he was offered. A number of tools that were probably symbolic of the Yellow tribe were lined up like furniture. Some of them seemed to be magical tools made of animal bones, while others were beautiful traditional artifacts. While he was contemplating them, Gender brought him tea from the kitchen. Have a cup. It's my grandfather's recipe. It's one of the finest blends that will instantly soothe you to your very soul. Gender. Thank you. So, you knew I was going to come here? Sito. Yes. Everything is as the great totem had predicted. I have long carried on the traditions of the Yellow tribe, and anticipated the arrival of you and your female companion, Gender. Like divination. Sito. Well, you can take it that way. After all, anyone else would have probably dismissed this information as shady, at best. Gender. The old shaman's wrinkles curved even more as he smiled and sipped his tea. Say, did you also find out who I am? Sito. Not your entire background, though. However, I can see that your past is stained with blood and iron. And the same goes for that lady. But be at ease. I don't plan to say anything about it. There are plenty of people with special backgrounds in this village, Gender. Sito took a sip of tea as he watched Gender's cheerful smile. The flavor spreading in his mouth made him feel as if it had permeated to the depths of his heart at once. When he drank it once more, it warmed him up from the inside out and made him feel at peace. He felt as if his heart was beating calmly, somehow. Now, I presume you've had your fill of tea and that you've come here to ask me a few questions, haven't you? Gender. Oh, right. Actually, Sito told him about the cave he found yesterday, and what Ryoda told him today. The faceless totem poles, Ahaz Patel the Wendigo of Death, and the Yellow Tribe. Gender nodded and listened. I see. That was a former ceremonial site used to worship Ahaz Patel. Originally, the totem poles were made of wood, and the wind and rain would cause them to corrode and disappear. They would decay naturally, and return to the earth. This is how it should be, as they are not to be preserved or restored unless there's a valuable reason for it. Gender. Satis also said that the ones we found seemed to be made of stone, but, Sito. Indeed. Although only a few people knew how to make those totem poles, they would pass down that knowledge to their children, who would then pass it down to their own children. Unfortunately, no one in my family is among those people. Therefore, I don't know how to make them. But I do know that the meaning of those totem poles you found is immutability, a state where no changes occur. Which means death. That's why those totem poles were built right wherever the Wendigo of Death was worshipped. Gender. You mean there are other altars dedicated to him, Sito? Perhaps. Let me tell you about Ahaz Patel. Many consider the prologue of his legend to date back to when the world was still a time of darkness and burning heat. He has existed since that time, using his own body to create all forms of life. The sky, the land, the sea, the mountains, the rivers, the fish, the birds, and then humanity. It took him tens of thousands of years, or maybe even longer, to create all the life forms that make up this world. Although, far from having made everything from scratch, he made use of the fertility of life, and spent an even longer time to make it take root. Gender. It really sounded like a mythological story, although, even Sito was astonished that the yellow folklore considered life to be born not from an omniscient, omnipotent, and luminous god, but from a being that was practically death itself. All life is borrowed from death. That is to say, they are all to be eventually returned to Ahaz Patel. And the period of time until then is what we call lifespan. Gender. Doesn't that make you afraid? It's your own life, yet you have to return it, Sito. Death is a cruel thing. Whether it's a baby, a woman, or a child, when people die, their life is restored to Ahaz Patel without mercy. But we of the Yellow Tribe do not fear death. Even if we die, our bodies return to the earth and become nourishment for the nurturing of a new life. All life returned to Ahaz Patel is transformed into a new one. Gender's eyes shone like those of a young man. Sito unintentionally gasped. As I said earlier, life is alone from death itself. However, it displays anger toward those who thoughtlessly reap and disrespect the lives of others. And the reverse is also true. Those who are overly fearful of death, and attempt to meaninglessly prolong their own lives, will also incur the wrath of Ahaz Patel. The wrath of death? Sito. However, he never directly claims a life with his own hands. According to the legends, in the former case, the offender is made to walk on the path to the fate he dreads the most. And in the latter case, the lives of those around the offender are made miserable, and once they're left with scars that remain even after his life has run out, he comes to claim his soul. The more he heard about this folklore, the more horrifying it sounded. Sito and Satis probably belong to the former category. The moment Gender saw Sito's forehead sweating profusely, he burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. Did I scare you too much? I did say this was what the legends stated, but it's basically a warning about life. Nothing more than a story using the name of Ahaz Patel as a caution. There's no need to take it so seriously, Gender. Oh okay. I guess I'm really not comfortable with this kind of story, Sito. It's rare to see someone react like that nowadays. When I told that story to the children at the royal capital, they either yawned or couldn't stop laughing. Gender sipped his tea again. Meanwhile, Sito brought up something else. That mural painting of the mass of tentacles in a yellow cloak he saw at the altar inside that cave. He saw it, but Satis did not. The moment he told him that, Gender's expression instantly turned serious. You mean that? You saw him, Gender? Why yeah. Satis didn't see it, though. Or rather, when I pointed it to her, it seemed to have disappeared. So I thought maybe it was a hallucination. Sito. You did not hallucinate at all, Gender. Gender put his teacup back on its saucer, and readjusted his sitting position. Ahaz Patel's portrait disappeared many moons ago, but I saw it myself when I was a child and I still remember it. That horrifying figure that possessed, however, something of a nihilistic beauty. Many times I had the illusion of feeling an enormous vortex of energy coming from the part of his face hidden by his hood, and he even appeared in my dreams for a while. Gender. Then, does this mean that Ahaz Patel is after me? Sito. Sito involuntarily jumped from his seat. Gender reined him in with his hand. Calm down. My guess is that he might be testing you, Gender. Testing me? Sito. According to the myth of Ahaz Patel, he does not take any souls before they come to him. If this part had been a lie, he would have already taken yours. But what a surprise. I never thought there could be anyone other than the Yellow Tribe capable of perceiving Ahaz Patel. He must consider you special, Gender. Death itself was testing Sito. For this boy, who had lived on the battlefield where death was always in close proximity, this felt like a strange experience. What could he possibly want from Sito? Far from feeling restless and frightened, Sito pondered that question with an exceedingly cool head. Oh ho, I see a calm and realistic look in your eyes. Looks like you've gone through your fair share of conflicts, Gender. Well, thinking back on it, I'm a guy who has been eating meals next to death itself. So I feel like it's a bit late to tell me that it's testing me, Sito. I see. You're a strong one. But, well, perhaps Ahaz Patel is just warning you about death, and suggesting that you be careful, Gender. Careful? Huh. If that's the case, then I'll happily take his advice to heart, Sito. He looked out the windows, and noticed that it was beginning to get dark outside. If he stayed any longer, Satis would worry about him. Well, I have two things left to tell you. The invasion of the Demon King's army is growing weak. I presume the national borders will be reopened tomorrow. If you wish to continue your journey, this will be your chance. And one more thing, Gender. What is it? Sito. In the near future, you and your companion may have a visitor, a most uninvited visitor, at that, Gender. Who? Sito. I couldn't see all the details, only that it's an awfully exhausted woman, with eyes full of madness. She's roaming the land by her lonesome, like a ghost, Gender. Got it. Will be careful, Sito. After that, Sito bowed and left the house. While seeing him off as he rushed home, Gender said a prayer. May you children receive the Great Totem's divine protection, Gender. He watched the back of the boy, who was probably fascinated by Ahaz Patel, and suddenly smiled. The boy known as Sito had an aura different from any other boy. There was no sign of death on his back. Right now, there was something shining in his heart. Gender sensed it, and prayed for Sito's future. So that's Sito, huh? He has not the eyes of a soldier, but the eyes of a swordsman. Perhaps he has the untapped potential to overcome even the most difficult challenges. Ahaz Patel. I wonder what it is that you saw in him, Gender. And then, he went back into his house. His face looked more cheerful than ever, as if he had seen something good for the first time in ages. Meanwhile, outside Benjamin village, someone was walking, illuminated by the moon high up in the dark sky. Foo-fa-foo. Sito, Sito, C2, C-E-E-E-E-2. Hydra. It was a former member of the Heroes Party. The female martial artist, Hydra. Chapter 29, Hydra, who had completely changed, came to bring me back. Chapter 29, Hydra, who had completely changed, came to bring me back. After midnight, the village and its surroundings were eerily quiet. Everyone was asleep, and the nocturnal animals surreptitiously wriggled about in their territories. Meanwhile, Sito was having trouble sleeping. He dove into his bed, but he could not stop thinking about what Gender told him about the Wendigo of death, and most of all, about that wandering woman who would be visiting him in the near future. He said she would arrive uninvited, but no such woman came to his mind among the few he knew. His best guess would be that she was a member of the Heroes Party, but they could not possibly bother to see him after they had kicked him out. They were fighting for the sake of the world at the moment. Surely they would not abandon their important mission of saving the world just to see a little guy like him. Much less by herself. An awfully exhausted woman, with eyes full of madness. It's no use, I have no idea who that could be. Sito. In order to clear out his gloomy feelings, he decided to go take a breath of fresh air. Satis was sleeping in the room next door, so he made sure not to make any noise on his way out. Being stealthy was his specialty. Phew. Wow. The starry sky is so beautiful in this village. Sito. The air he breathed felt refreshing and penetrated deep into his lungs. The brightness of the stars in the sky showed how pure and clear the nature of this land was. In the middle of them all, the moon of the 10th day casted its beautiful light far beyond the horizon, gently enveloping those who slept peacefully at night from the sky. Even Sito, who did not know much about the moon phases, was moved by this night scene. Nature is amazing, and we live in it. Sito, who felt at ease as if his worries from earlier had been a lie, turned around to go back to his room, hoping that he would be able to sleep this time. However, right after that, he felt the presence of someone. They were clearly showing hostility. Sito sensed it from behind and reacted quickly. As soon as he turned around, he drew his knife and took a stance. The individual he found standing there, bathing in the moonlight, was someone he did not expect to see here. Hey, been a while, hasn't it? Sito. Hydra. You're Hydra? Sito's former comrade glared at him with a vile smile on her face, and a glint of madness and anger in her eyes. Her dignified martial arts uniform was torn in places, and her body was covered in countless scars. There was no trace of her usual expression full of confidence and pride. The sword that served as her weapon was tied at her waist, unsheathed, and her scabbard was missing. That sword, which was supposed to be a family heirloom, was not even maintained, and the blade was even dented and cracked all over. A female martial artist standing under the moonlight. On paper only, the sight would have made for a nice painting, but the way she was now, she just looked like a monster. Sito dropped his battle stance, but he still kept his guard up. He watched her every move as if to monitor her. Honestly, the nerve of you. So while we were out working our asses off for there, for the sake of the world, why, you were living a carefree life kicking back in this remote village. Hydra. How did you find me? Hydra. How, you ask? Simple, really. I gathered intel on you. They told me that you and some beautiful woman were on your way to this village. You even got a woman at your beck and call, even though you're just a boy soldier. A lowly barbarian. Hydra. She staggeringly approached him while letting out a strange laugh. Her movements were just like those of an undead, and even Sito unconsciously felt a chill down his spine. It took me days to get here, you know. I ran into monsters, then it was bandits. It was horrible. Now let's go. Right now, we need your power more than ever. So? You love to kill, don't you? You're a bloodthirsty magic swordsman, aren't you? Well, lucky you. You'll get to kill a whole bunch. Hydra. Hydra extended her hand. Her arms were also covered in sword wounds and bite marks. But even more shocking was the number of cuts on her wrists. Sito intuitively knew that these were self-inflicted wounds, giving him a full understanding of Hydra's current state of mind. He had no way of knowing what she would do next. Even so, he had to say it. Sorry, Hydra, but I'm not a soldier anymore, and I'm not going back to the heroes' party. Sito. Huh? Hydra. I'm sure you were desperately chasing me at the request of Reed and the others, but I have no intention of staying with you guys anymore. I want to live my own life. Sito. Right after he said that, Hydra threw her fist at Sito's face. However, the latter successfully withstood it and quickly got back up. He took that blow on purpose. Feeling better now? Sito. Are you shitting me, you little punk? Do you have even the slightest fucking idea how shit I had to go through to find you? Hydra. And I told you, I'm sorry, Sito. You think that's gonna cut it? I've come this far just to bring you back after those jerks actually made me promise to become their fucking slave. So you're coming with me? Now, you're a soldier. You have no right to veto anything, so do as I say. Hydra. No, Sito. You don't get to refuse. Hydra. No, Sito. I said you don't get to refuse shit. Just do as your elders say, you brat. Hydra. She approached him and hit him repeatedly on the cheeks. Unlike Hydra, who looked desperate, Sito gritted his teeth and did not change his expression, adamantly refusing to change his mind. He was used to being hit by adults repeatedly back in his days as a boy soldier. It was no small feat to stand upright while enduring this level of pain. Also, He sensed that Hydra was not in much condition to fight, to the point that he concluded he would not need to use his magic sword on her. "If you won't come with me, I'll kill you, Hydra. You'll never be able to kill me in your current state, Sito. I'll show you. Hydra. Hydra drew her sword and raised it. It would be quite easy for Sito to incapacitate someone like her who had long since lost her mind. However, just as he was about to counterattack with the knife in his hand, an unforeseen turn of events took place. Hydra could not move. Someone was standing behind her, and gripping her blade tightly with one hand to stop her. It was Satis, who was supposed to be asleep. She was wearing her usual combat suit, with the lenses of her glasses shining in the moonlight, and the look in her eyes behind those lenses made Sito gasp. It was a look filled with murderous intent, like that of a bird of prey. She was glaring at Hydra with pupils as constricted as those of a ferocious animal. Why you're Hydra. Hydra also unintentionally let her fear show through in her words. And just what do you think you're doing? Satis, the leader of the Demon King's army. Satis, what the hell are you doing here? Hydra, answer my question. What were you doing to this boy? Satis. Satis was showing her true nature as a demon. Female humans and female demons may look the same, but their physical abilities and latent powers were vastly different. Right now, Satis was showing a level of hostility and aura as great as, or maybe even greater, than when she and Sito fought each other before. The root of her hostility was Sito. She could not stand idly by while the one who was so precious to her was attacked in the middle of the night by someone she already knew. Don't tell me that the beautiful woman traveling with him is Hydra. You said that brats are supposed to obey their elders, right? Then answer me already. What were you doing to this boy? Well? Satis. Satis' eyes widened, and at the same time, the blade snapped under her grip. Her face was brimming with pure rage, and she looked as if she was about to explode. https://wwp.com/wp-content/uploads/2022/09/img_5322.png. Chapter 30. The Women's Battle Unfolding in the Middle of the Night. Here it comes. Chapter 30. The Women's Battle Unfolding in the Middle of the Night. Here it comes. With her sword shattered, Hydra tossed the hilt away, and leapt away to gain some distance. Despite her physical and mental exhaustion, she still seemed to be capable of moving. I see now. It's you. You seduced Sito and brainwashed him, didn't you? Hydra. Sito, please step back. It's a woman's job to beat up crazy girls like her, Satis. As she declared that, Satis took off her glasses and took a few steps in Hydra's direction. I'm not crazy. I bet you were planning to use your charms to seduce Sito into attacking me and the others. Ain't that right? That's exactly the kind of plan a schemer like you would come with, Hydra. I won't waste my time arguing with a mind so rotten it won't listen. I'd basically be talking to a wall. Keep your paranoid delusions to yourself, Satis. Shut up. Ha. Let me show you something good. See this? This belonged to the leader of the bandits who attacked me. It may look like any regular pill, but when I swallow it, Hydra took out a red pill, and chewed on it. At that moment, her complexion suddenly improved, and at the same time, something much like blood vessels emerged on her face. Her thin body bow looked nourished and strong, and the look in her eyes got as sharp as a monster's. A magic drug that temporarily boosts your power, I see. You really think you can beat me with that? Satis. One thing's for sure, it helps me put up a better fight, Hydra. She took a fighting stance and slightly lowered her center of gravity. Her palms were opened like the sharp claws of a tiger or a dragon, and positioned them facing up and down. Seeing Hydra's stance, Satis also held her fist in front of her. However, Sito could not help but feel worried for her. Even if she was a demon, she was more of a mage than a brawler, meaning she was not very skilled in melee combat. Even if her physical abilities were superior to those of humans, he was not sure how well she could fare against Hydra's martial art. He especially wondered how well she would handle Hydra's onslaught now that the latter had undergone heavy enhancements. Satis, can you do hand-to-hand combat? Sito. I'm not really good at it, but I won't feel satisfied until I've landed a blow on that woman. Don't worry, I'll end this quickly, Satis. And so, the two women engaged in a fist fight under the moonlight. Hydra leapt forward while screeching like a bird, and unleashed a consecutive series of kicks aimed at Satis' head and torso while in midair. Thanks to her enhancements, her agility was augmented. Satis managed to partly dodge the first blow, and parry the second one with her palm, but that last one was so powerful that even she felt her hand go numb. "I'm not done yet." Hydra. After landing back in the ground, Hydra instantly reassumed her fighting stance, and performed a series of attacks on Satis using her palms, her elbows, her back fists, her fingertips, the sole and side of her feet, her knees, and every possible part of her torso. Her martial art was a fighting style designed for places where the footing was usually unstable, such as on a rocking ship or in mountainous areas. The strength in her legs and waist and the agility of her techniques were further strengthened by the use of that pill. Honestly speaking, this put Satis, who was inexperienced in close-quarter combat, at a disadvantage. Nonetheless, she was no pushover. HMPH, Satis, Gaha? Hydra. She delivered a powerful body blow into Hydra's stomach. The moment the latter flinched from that, the former raised her right foot as high as she could and landed an axe kick. Hydra's face was distorted with pain and shock as her head took the full brunt of that move. She staggered a few steps backwards and shook her head to stay conscious, but she could not stop herself from wobbling. "Oh my Tilda, how embarrassing it would be if you went down in only 2 hits, Satis." "Shut up." Hydra. Next, both of their roundhouse kicks clashed and thundered. Taking advantage of the momentum of the rappelling, Satis lowered her center of gravity to the ground by moving like an enchanting dancer, and caught Hydra's leg in a foot sweep. The latter was completely caught up in her pace and helplessly crashed into the ground. However, she was no amateur either. Although she fell, she managed to cushion her fall and use the recoil to get back on her feet. Annoyed at her persistence, Satis attempted to punch her again. Hydra. Hydra's legs generated a powerful tremor in one step. As soon as she got close to her opponent's bosom, she put her own body weight and the energy she had built up in her core into her right elbow, and struck Satis' open chest with it. Satis' eyes widened as she was blown away by the impact of a blow that felt like taking a cannon shot at an extremely close range. "Satis, Sito." Sito unintentionally shouted her name. Satis, however, did not tumble over, and kept her feet firmly planted in the ground. Then she responded with a nonchalant look on her face. "That blow just now did startle me a bit. I would prefer it if you used those kinds of attacks from the beginning, Satis." "Why you are still standing after that?" "You're as tough as they say, leader of the Demon King's army. Destroying you will be a real achievement, Hydra." "I'm still a demon, after all. Also, I'm not part of the Demon King's army anymore." "Same as Sito, Satis." "What?" Hydra. "But it's not like you can understand what I'm saying anyways, given your current state." "So I'm going to put you to sleep, Satis." "Don't screw with me, Hydra." The two female fighters closed in on each other to trade blows once again. The battle between a demon and a lunatic unfolded under the moon. All Sito would do was watch over this fight. Sito. Satis was going for a roundhouse kick while Hydra was attempting to throw a punch, and both of their fighting spirits made the land tremor. A loud voice suddenly resounded. At that same moment, someone violently crashed into Hydra from behind. It was the guard, Keelim. Not only did she close the distance so fast that neither Sito nor Satis even noticed her, she tackled Hydra from behind with that same momentum. Hydra. The impact was so great that she lost her balance and leapt towards Satis with her body bent backwards. Satis. Satis noticed immediately, but it was already too late. Her powerful kick knocked Hydra off balance and burst into the side of her defenseless face. Hydra. A strong tackle from behind, and a strong kick in the face. The force of that kick caused Hydra's body to rotate tremendously and be blown sky high. She spun like a top, her eyes rolled over, and her consciousness completely flew out the window. Then she fell to the ground and tumbled over a few more times with the sound of her bones and flesh being broken and torn. "Halt, you damn peace-threatening lunatic! In the name of this village, I command you to freeze." Keelim. Like the guard she was, Keelim pointed her sword at Hydra, who was lying on her back, with her arms and legs bent in every direction, and bleeding in various places. She's not moving anymore, Satis. Really? Then get up already, Keelim. You think she can? Comitatus. Thus, Hydra's attack was quickly brought to an end by Keelim's burst on the scene. And due to this incident, the duo decided to leave the village ahead of time.